Today is Tuesday, August 24th, 2021 at 6 p.m. This is the Hanson Board of Selectmen meeting being broadcast and televised by Whitman Hanson Cable Access. Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go to this week's announcements, I would just like to hold a quick moment of silence for James and Jenna Ripley, who lost their lives last week. Thank you. Mr. Weeks, do you mind providing us with this week's announcements?
My pleasure.
Thank you.
We are looking for citizens at large to become members of the newly revitalized Bylaws Review Committee. Volunteer applications may be found on the town website, www.hanson-ma.gov, or by calling Greer in the Selectmen's office at 781-293-2131. Volunteers are also needed on the following committees: Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Disabilities, Facebook Upkeep Committee, Highway Building Committee, Historical Commission, Memorial Day Patriotic Observance, Memorial Field Trustees, Nathaniel Thomas Mill Committee, and Zoning Bylaws Review Committee. Upcoming meetings: Board of Selectmen, September 14th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Board of Selectmen, September 28th, 2021 at 6 p.m. and a special town meeting October 4th, 2021 and October 5th, 2021 if necessary at the high school gymnasium.
Great, thank you very much.
COVID-19.
Do you want me to read that?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so we also have a COVID-19 vaccine clinic for veterans and spouses and VA staff, Saturday, August 28th, 2021, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Brockton Post 1046. That's at 283 North Quincy Street, Brockton, Mass. 02302. And it says, important, read before attending. Open to VA employees and all veterans, spouses, and caregivers of all ages, includes veterans not enrolled in VA healthcare, as well as veteran caregivers and CHAMP VA recipients ages 12 and up. Do you have questions about the vaccine? VA staff will be there to answer your questions. Clinic will be first come, first served. Vaccine will be offered based on clinical need and vaccine inventory. If you've had a previous COVID-19 vaccine, please bring your CDC card with documentation. Immunocompromised individuals may receive their third dose. Masks and physical distancing are required. For questions, contact Kyle Toto, VA Boston Public Affairs, at Kyle, K-Y-L-E, .T-O-T-O, at va.gov, or 617-435-4372.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Weeks. So the first item on the agenda is a joint session with the Board of Assessors to fill a vacancy on that board until the next town election. Ms. Green.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Earlier in July, we had a resignation on the Board of Assessors, and we are here to interview and speak with a person who we'd like to fill the vacancy until the next election. Here with us tonight, we do have Joshua Adams, I believe, in the audience. And we also have our assessor, Lee Gamache, with us as well. So I'd like to ask Joshua up to the podium.
Is the Board of Assessors here? Did they already open their meeting?
Lee,
I think
did you need to open up your meeting?
I think we need the Board of Assessors to open up the meeting.
We just have our chair
Okay.
here this evening, so that's the only other member of the Board of Assessors that's here this evening. And we voted at our meeting on August 20th to recommend Josh to
Okay.
the board.
Okay.
Great.
Oh, great. Okay. Did the board want to say a few things, or Mr. Adams, would you want to say a few things?
Want me to introduce?
Yeah, that'd be,
All right, so
Lee,
this
that'd be
is
great.
Joshua Adams. He lives in Hanson. We're so excited to have him on the board. He's already completed his course 101 with the Department of Revenue. He comes with assessing knowledge. He was working in the Hanover Assessor's Office, so feel very fortunate to have him. We have our chairperson, Matthew Dwyer, Mrs. Hammett, Mr. Weeks, Mr. Hickey, that's our town administrator, Lisa Green, and town council, Kate Farah.
Great,
Take a vote, agree?
great. Well, Mr. Adams, you come with high regards from our town assessor. Is there any questions from our board?
No, well, just more of a procedural, thank you for applying. We're thrilled to have somebody with your credentials stepping up. We're in dire need, so it's awesome. But as far as procedurally, I thought both
Yep.
boards needed to
But what you
vote.
can do, Laura, I was gonna say this after, if you guys are satisfied with Mr. Adams, you could make it contingent upon a subsequent vote of the Board of Assessors to appoint.
And then how
So
do you?
then they can
and-
just do it subsequently.
And then
But-
how
'cause
does
they just
the
recommended.
quorum piece work, right? Because how does the majority vote counting piece work? Because it,
They're a three-member board, right?
Yep.
So two will have to show.
and so as long as they vote in the majority and we vote in the majority, which I don't think is going to be an issue, then we're good to go.
Then you're good to go.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
All right, so moved.
All right.
Can I just
Uh,
ask,
But
just
they
quick
have to
question?
vote
just
Sure,
'cause-
Mr. Weeks.
Just setting the precedent, because I asked this of everybody.
It's better together.
Is it,
but it's fine if it's.
So with Ms. Gamash's recommendation, I think that's really, really good. She answered a lot of questions I would have had anyways. I guess my only thing is, just because I asked this of everybody, anything that you, because there's just no disclosure or anything, is there anything here that you would think that would be, that you think that we should know? Is there anything that you feel that we should know going into this? Any disclosure-related incidents, anything?
As far as like conflict, Joe?
Conflicts,
Yeah.
anything like that?
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
Great.
That's good.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second moved and seconded. All in favor to appoint Mr. Adams to the Board of Assessors? Contingent to
Yep.
the Board of Assessors. All right, all in favor? Aye, 4-0. Mr. Adams, thank you very much for stepping up.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So,
Congratulations.
item 2 on tonight's agenda, Town Clerk and Mr. Malisi regarding citizens petition. Ms. Green?
Yes, Mr. Chair, so we did have, Mr. Malisi did come into the Board of Selectmen's office to present 2 citizens petitions. So we did stamp them in received as protocol calls, and then we did turn them over to the town clerk to verify all the signatures. It was certified. It is before the Board of Selectmen this evening to review and to either, I guess, recommend that they are put on the warrant as an article for the October special town meeting on the 4th. I believe our town clerk is here. If there's any questions as far as procedurally on citizen petition, and I believe Mr. Malisi is here as well to speak of his reasoning and his motivation for putting forth both of these citizens petitions.
All right, thank you. So so one thing that Mr. Malisi has done, he had collected over 100 signatures to go forward with this.
I got it from, so,
Yeah, do you want to step up to the podium? And do you mind just introducing yourself?
Sure, Frank Malisi, 604 Brook Street, and I just actually
Thank
have copies of them right here. A lot of people watching will probably notice me from Shaw's. I've been out there pretty much every day for the past 4 weeks. So I have 3 citizens petitions that I got. I personally got over 320 signatures on all 3 of these citizens petitions. One of the citizens petitions that I have is actually something that the board is looking to put on the warrant for this special town meeting, and that is the one that, it differs a little bit, because in mine, I have elected to any board or committee unless the individual is a registered voter in the town of Hanson. So that, does anybody have questions about that
So
citizens petition in
yours
particular?
limited it to elected officials?
So I can, let me read the whole thing, just to be clear. It says, it would add a new section 16 to part 2/1 of the general provision governing all municipal bodies, committees and boards, resident eligibility. And it says, no person shall be appointed or elected to any town board or committee unless the individual is a registered voter in the town of Hanson. That's the wording specifically on mine. It doesn't have any, unanimous Board of Selectmen vote like you guys talked about the last election. I also, from what you guys were talking about last, meeting, sorry, not election, last meeting, I did not know if you guys had elected in that, in your article that you're thinking about presenting to the town meeting. So this is
Ours was
appointed and elected.
any board or committee, period. We didn't differentiate between elected or appointed. We just said any board or committee.
But, and then also in ours, it would be also, there are certain times where you would want a member with expertise in the position. So whatever that may be. So I think that was one thing that we also had in
Well, I
ours to outline
had
it.
thrown that out, Mr. Chair, just as a talking point,
Right.
but I don't know that we ever really voted on it.
Okay.
To decide one way or the other, but I could see how it could be exploited and misused, but I could also see how there might be a case, and Mr. Clements, I hope you don't mind, but I actually used you as an example. If you had decided to perhaps leave town, you've got very unique skills that we might want to still be able to leverage, and I don't know why you popped into my mind, but you just did, so and so I thought, in that case, we might want to say, okay, thank you that you're leaving, but gee, until we can fill a vacancy, or you're in the middle of some big project, is it possible for you to stick around for a little while? And it would never be intended for it to be a permanent situation. But I had just thrown that out because I just hate to see us paint ourselves into a corner. I don't feel particularly strongly one way or the other, so.
Well, no,
you know.
I strongly agree with you, and I think that there are some folks in town hall that would also think that way too. There's some times where you need a member who may not be a resident of Hanson. But then also too, one thing that kind of hung me up is register voter. We might have kids in high school that might want to be involved. Like, for instance, myself. I was a part of the Energy Committee well before I was a registered voter in the town of Hanson.
Correct.
So I think that's something also too, that, it just maybe residency, I don't know if town council could advise on how to prove residency, how do you define residency, but that might be something too. I wouldn't want to just shut out the younger generation that does want to get involved.
Correct, but so on to be the devil's advocate about that, you can register to vote at 17 now. So after the last election, anybody can register to vote at 17. I had multiple people getting these signatures that didn't want to sign it because of that particular reason. They said, well, if they don't want to vote, they don't have to. It doesn't mean you have to vote. You just have to register to vote. If you're going to be appointed, my personal opinion is if you're going to be sitting on a board or committee in town, you should be invested in that town enough to register to vote at least the local level. of that town.
But what if they're younger than, if we have someone that's 16 that
Do we
would
have a
want.
bylaw that says that somebody has to have an age that requirement for sitting on a board or committee, or can?
Well,
the
this
board
would,
select-
this would say you have to be a registered voter.
In order to sit on boards and committees without this bylaw, in order to sit on boards and committees, can we have a 15-year-old come in here and get appointed to the recreation committee?
I think we could, yeah.
Good, okay, well, I did not see a bylaw that said that. If registered voter is not something that you guys want to, take into that, or on your article that you have, that's fine. Registered voter to me is the easiest and simplest way to prove a resident is in the town of Hanson.
No, so I like where you're going with this. I understand where you're going, but I'm wondering if we say something like, to the extent somebody is, and I'm trying, it's a highly unlikely situation, but once again, we have to kind of, I guess, plan for it. But to the extent somebody is ineligible to register to vote, because I think Mr. Malisi is onto something. I would want to think that somebody who wants to serve on a board, a town board or committee, is already engaged enough that they would have registered to vote, to the extent they're eligible.
Right.
But to your point, I guess we don't want to have ageism. We could have like a Doogie Howser or a Matt Dyer, who wants to serve.
I wasn't that smart at 12 or 15 in order to serve on a board or committee, so.
So I don't know, maybe Kate, yeah.
One comment is that I know, and I don't know this from being a lawyer, I know from moving, that when I moved from the city to the town where I live now, I remained registered to vote in Brockton for a period, I think you can do it for like 6 months or something, Beth. So if you wanted to make it immediate, it wouldn't kick in immediately, because I'm still registered to vote in not anymore, but I was at the time, for 6 more months after I had left the city. And it was just because they you get messed up when you're trying to re-register to vote in the other town. So that's one caveat for you to think about. No preference one way or the other. Residency, there is a legal definition, and I don't know the words right now, they're escaping me, but it's like your regular abode with no anticipation of leaving or vacating that place. There's a legal definition of it, but I just don't know the words, domicile,
So,
yeah.
yeah, from my perspective, it's hard, it is hard to try to define it based off of the Secretary of State's definition of
Yeah, I know,
a residency.
it's hard.
They essentially say that you have to establish a pattern of behavior. Typically, it's where you sleep more often than not, something along those, they use those as examples. So I tend to go that route. For me, I think, I go a couple different ways. I like to use the keep it simple method, and I just think that we don't have anything that says you have to be a resident as in the general bylaws. So regardless of the voter registration, I think the proof of residency is where I tend to fall. And this is, proof of residency can be determined by the town clerk. I agree with that, obviously, makes sense. That's the town clerk's role, and it's listed as one of their powers. So we have the ability to challenge something like that, so we have a policy, so I'm not sure the redundancy in this is necessarily needed. I would just like to keep it as, elected official, appointed, even elected officials, that's governed by the election laws, you have to be.
You have to be
Yeah.
a resident.
That's
in
already
this
there.
town To be
Yeah.
elected in this town.
So that's why we don't need a bylaw for elected officials, because it's already established in law, right? So the only thing that we have to challenge is whether or not someone can be appointed, has to live here, right? So I think I'd like to go the path of just keeping it simple and just saying that a person has to live in the town of Hanson to serve on a board or committee, right? Be appointed to a board or committee. And then for each individual one, like there's the only one that's coming to mind right now, like I don't want to minimize the job, but the dog catcher, the animal control officer. Where we're sharing that, or a dispatcher, where we're sharing that amongst towns, we can have individual exceptions based off of that, based off of the need of that position. But having this overarching thing that just simply says residency, go with the complaint policy or the challenging policy for residency, which is already established in the town clerk's powers. I think keeping it simple like that just makes sense.
Those are employees, those two examples, but I get where you're going. I actually like the backdoor that Mr. Malisi has put into this of proof of residency can be determined by the town clerk. I like that because we've already got some issues, which we're not going to discuss about, around residency, and I don't know, I would like to hear what, if you don't mind, through you, Mr. Chair, what Ms. Sloan thinks about that sort of resting on her shoulders.
That's fine, that's part of the job. My thing is what Matt was going to as far as maybe a waiver to allow a non-resident for like the search committees. Like we have the police search committee, we have a local officer, a local chief on there. Now, if he didn't live in town, we couldn't use that.
Right.
So I would like to see if you're gonna do that, to have a waiver that you can, for particular things, maybe not for like conservation but that kind of a committee.
Okay, so some little wiggle room there.
So can I counter that though, and just simply say that what I was talking about, when you have committees like this, you establish that, like this is, when we establish this committee falls, do we have the power to do that if we were to create a search committee, for example? To just simply say, we're creating a search committee for whatever it is that we're doing, right? And just simply say, outside of, I'm just gonna use your language here, but section 16, this committee's appointments are outside of the scope of section 16, could we do that?
No, you're
No.
bound to follow your bylaws.
Yeah,
So if
that's
you have a
our
bylaw
bylaw.
on the books
Okay.
without the waiver exception, you're sort of,
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of waivers.
I didn't intend this to be amendment proof. First thing, so this right here is the first citizens petition I've ever done. This one's the second and this one's the third. So I'm not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. I try to go through and find things in our bylaw that make sense that they would be there or not. This is the glaring one. Pembroke has a similar bylaw to this. It does not include elected officials, but it says appointed, officials to boards and town committees. That's kind of where I got the language of it from. I would imagine if this goes to town meeting, there's probably gonna be an amendment on it. If it sits as it is right now, I'll be happy to make some amendments to fix them up and change them however they need to be done. I'm not sure how amendments work on the citizens petition that already has validated signatures though.
I think if I, well, just to answer that question through, if you don't mind, Madam Clerk, that would be, to make amendments on that kind of petition, it would have to be done on the town meeting floor, correct?
Correct.
So,
And
yeah, so that,
I've already given Mr. Malisi the paperwork to do that.
Yep.
And I've already told him my concerns with what he had done.
Yeah,
Great.
and Mrs. Sloan has been fantastic in this whole process. She sent me a set of instructions that I had. I thought I understood them. I clearly did not. And she still went through and validated them for me anyway, and made it so, you know, I can come in front of you guys. Thank you, Mr. Chair, by the way, for letting me come and speak to you guys about this. I worked a lot of hours to get these petitions done. I probably put in 30, 35 hours of sitting at Shaw's, got kicked out one time, went back and met at Dollar Tree, all kinds of crazy stuff happened. So, I do appreciate that she just didn't say this isn't valid and threw it out the window. And I definitely appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to the petitions that I have here.
sure, Mr. Hickey.
Mr. Chair, I was going to ask you, you were elected to the, or appointed to the Energy Commission while you were in high school,
Yep.
and you were a voting member.
At that time, I don't believe I was. I think I was
Okay.
17.
Okay,
And
that'll,
that changed.
yeah, that'll handle that. Age discrimination, call it whatever you want. If there's a 15 or a 16-year-old young person on one of our committees in town, I do not want that person voting in any committee. So that'll take care of the, being registered to vote. I just think they don't have the life experience to vote on some committee at 15 or 16 years old. Senior in high school, registered to vote, sure. You want to help out, I get it. So that would take care of that. As far as somebody leaving town and being put on a committee, like Mr. Clemens was mentioned, if he's in the middle of a project, I can see it. But if he's leaving town, he's moving somewhere else. He's got enough to do with where he's going than to worry about what he's left here in Hanson.
No, it's really special circumstances, like a project. Let's say he's in the middle of a grant application for, and he's the main contact, and he's been working on it for 6 months, and he says, geez, I'm moving, but, it seems to me as though I've got institutional knowledge you guys can't duplicate. And, would you like me to serve for another 3 months? I'm willing to do that. It would be very temporary.
And I
Yeah.
agree with you, Laura,
Yeah.
on a temporary basis, but there's got to be something in this that says a search committee, for whatever position we're looking for. It's just too vague.
Yeah, the only thing I agree with you, with your points. I guess the only other way around this is if you literally listed out every single committee that currently exists, so that way the ones that aren't listed don't apply, right? And then you put in if you go with the waiver route, you make the waiver by definition be temporary. Because if you have a waiver, all it takes is for someone to put in a waiver, get 3 votes, and then you're in the same problem that you might be in that we're trying to avoid, right? So I think the waiver the waiver itself needs to have a temporary clause if we're ever gonna go down it, in my opinion.
So,
Yeah.
sorry, not to
No,
cut you off,
yeah.
but maybe, going off what you're saying is maybe with these kind of appointments, the board acknowledges, yes, you're from out of town. Yes, this is a temporary basis for 90 days, and within 90, because I think really, realistically, it's something temporary, like a search committee for a police chief or whatever, is going to be about 90 days. And if we have to extend it, the board acknowledges again, and we just extend it 90 days, or something along that line, to kind of,
Why couldn't we, so I hear what you're saying.
Yep.
Why couldn't we specify something that says, search committees are an exception at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen, again, voting to appoint people, and that temporary extensions of previous appointments that we've made, again, discretion of the Board of Selectmen. I'm afraid that if we, in our zeal to be specific, if we leave something out, and this is a bylaw, we're gonna hamstring ourselves. But I think we need to be somewhat specific, but not crazy.
For the sake of being devil's advocate, just to put it out there, how often has it ever happened where something like that, in the history of this town, has that ever happened? where an elected official, for example, moves out, and somehow that void just could not be filled by the board, you know? Or how often has it ever happened where someone has established on an appointed committee something so profound that if they moved out of town, that it couldn't be covered again by the board? You know, each one of these members that we're talking about might have a certain expertise. And I don't mean to come off like I'm coming on a soapbox here, but we got Hall of Famers and Olympians in this town. I'm sure we can find a way to have a great amount of talent for these committees without having to worry about making exceptions for something, when really, we have talent here. We can do it.
You have a lot of
Ms. Federoff?
So just to, maybe this helps push the conversation forward, but one kind of carve-out you could make was, because when you say search committee, then you start thinking of, well, are there other committees where this could happen that are small, kind of, I don't want to say less significant, but more purposeful, I guess. You could say something like ad hoc advisory committees, right, that are excluded, and they're just there to advise the board that's really making the decision and is accountable to the residents of Hanson. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is saying, well, what are my big guns here, right? You've got Concom, you've got ZBA, you've got, planning, planning's elected, actually.
Yeah.
I take that back. Who else is a big gun? Board of Health, or are they elected?
Board of Health is elected too.
I would like to,
Recreation.
I'd like to add the recreation committee in there too. We're pretty big guns over there in the
Recreation,
recreation.
yeah.
We got wasps, sand wasps and things like that we're dealing with.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. And I said earlier, at least it's not sharks. So,
At least it's not sharks.
you know, you could think of your big guns that are making kind of consequential decisions. But for example, the one committee that was jumping to my mind is like the 200th anniversary committee, right? Like, maybe I lived here my whole life and I have an affinity to Hanson, and I want to say, oh, I'd like to help fundraise for that 200th anniversary, or I'd like to talk about what fireworks displays I want, just because I love the town, even though I don't live there any longer. So sort of those, and I don't want to minimize what the volunteers do, it's huge yeoman's work, but some of those less, I guess, controversial committees, you wouldn't include them. So you'd include your big guns, whatever they are, and they're different for every town. But Concom, zoning, recreation are the ones that come to mind. So that's another option to try to not hamstring you too much when you're dealing with these other kinds of advisory committees.
Do you mind, Christine, sorry, Ms. Cohen, do you mind just coming to the mic, because the microphone hanging from the ceiling has been disabled, so they just have to.
I was just gonna add some input, but my name's Christine Cohen, I live at 493 Spring Street. I was thinking if you had a disclosure for every person that you appoint, and that they have to disclose if they move out of town, and if they don't, it's immediate removal from the board. And then I also wanted you guys to specify who on the board of the selectmen would be making that decision, because you said discretion.
Oh,
but
it would be the whole board.
Okay.
It
And
wouldn't
you'd
be
have a
one
vote?
person. Yeah, it would
Okay.
be the majority.
So I think that
Yeah.
has to be
Yeah.
specified, and
Yeah.
maybe just have them,
Yeah.
so anyone that you do appoint, maybe just have them sign that disclosure. And if they don't disclose it and it's found out, then that's immediate removal.
Okay.
Just an idea.
Ms. Ketson?
Ms. Ketchum?
Greer?
Yeah.
Greer.
Do you mind just turning on the AC? Thank you. All right,
One other
Ms.
point
Federoff, yeah.
regardless. So, by the way, this citizens petition is what it is for now. So we're not amending this. What you would be amending is your
Yes. Yeah.
article
Yeah.
for your own competing, and depending upon what happens at town meeting, Mr. Malisi may choose to move his petition or not, but you would have competing
So,
warrant
so
articles.
I would rather the board take that petition up, and then if it's made readily available, then the citizens of the Hanson can make amendments to that petition and vote on it at the town meeting. If you guys have a petition that is duplicate to mine, that you guys are working through, that's more specific in what you wanna do, and you wanna add the Board of Selectmen part in there, and somebody, you know, a citizen wants to strike that from it, then they can vote on it there, right? I just, you know, I was doing that before there was discussions that you guys had publicly about this, so just know that when you do bring that, you have at least 125 verified, voters that are with you on that bylaw change, so.
I mean, I think we were trying to be responsive to what we had seen as a chink in the armor.
Yep.
I mean, it seemed mind-boggling that we didn't already have that bylaw, but here we are.
And 90% of the people that signed this petition said the exact same thing.
Yeah, so I think we haven't voted yet, but I think it clearly is the intention of this board to close up that chink in the armor and make sure we don't have that exposure anymore. What the ultimate wording looks like, we haven't agreed on that yet, because we're working through the warrant, right, tonight and in the future.
So, so with that being said, are we okay
think Mr.
moving
Young
on?
has something.
Mr. Young, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna sum it up, and, it's repetitive, I think your ad hoc idea is good. I would say ad hoc or subcommittees, and even to be more explicit, what would apply to the residency would be permanent committees created by either a vote of town meeting, the town bylaw, or by state law requires the residency.
Okay, great, thank you. So, are you good with citizens?
Good with that one.
Residency, sorry.
I have two other citizens petitions I did, and this is, if the last one took this amount of time to talk about, the next one's gonna be a little bit of a doozy, so let's hang in there. So, when I voted for the override back in May, I was not happy with me voting to have $1.85 million go in the backs of the taxpayers of this town. I looked for ways that we can bring back some revenue into the town without me starting my own business in town, which I'm not in a position to do. The obvious thing for me, since we already have a good working relationship with Impress LLC, by the way, I never spoke to them or anything like this, I have no affiliation with them, is to put back on the ballot for 2022 retail marijuana. These two petitions that I have, both got over 100 verified signatures. They are the same wording and petition that we had in 2018, except reverse. It strikes out the prohibited parts of it and adds permitted parts of it. And if passed at town meeting, it would just go on the ballot for 2022, so the town of Hanson can then have a new debate about the retail marijuana establishment. I got mixed reviews from this one. This is way it was obviously took a lot longer to get the 100 signatures than the other one, but I think the aura and the cloud around marijuana in general in the state of Massachusetts has definitely shifted from when it was back in 2018, when not a lot of towns are going ahead and doing this. It's an obvious moneymaker. Any town in the state of Massachusetts can levy a 3% additional tax on any sale through retail marijuana. Plus on the town article, the special town meeting that we have a 3% tax on the shipment of marijuana that you guys are gonna be presenting to the town. If I'm not mistaken, and Ms. Fedorov can correct me if I'm wrong, that compounds. So if we deliver to a retail marijuana establishment here in Hanson, we also get the additional 3% of the shipping of it. So we would get the grow tax, the ship tax, and the sale tax. So if we had if the voters willed it in the 2022 election and a retail marijuana establishment came in here and sold $1 million worth of retail marijuana, essentially that would be $90,000 that go back to the town of Hanson. I've heard stories about the one in Rockland, and the way that I hear about that, way more than $1 million is going through there. I haven't been there personally myself. I don't partake in any of this, but I do like the money aspect of it. My request for the Board of Selectmen, if you guys will indulge me in it, is to pass these citizens petitions to the special town meeting with council looking at them. And I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting that you guys had last time. And Mr. Mitchell, he's not here, but he said a couple things about, people can pay for their own lawyer and things like that. I can have Jody Cochran up here looking at this, but it's still not town council. Town council has the ultimate ability to make an opinion that the board will either, reject or deny. I did not write this on a piece of napkin paper. I did not spend 15 minutes on this, editing it and going through and making sure that everything looked right. I put a lot of work into editing both of these so I can think that they're 100% right, but on the other hand, I am not a lawyer. I don't have legal expertise. I didn't know that shall means different in three different parts of legalese, so, which was mind-boggling to me, I understand that the board doesn't wanna, make a precedence of having, citizens petitions to open up Lionel Farms coming up here and saying, I want an attorney to look at it. But this is a serious petition. This has already been brought in front of the town by the planning board back in 2018. And I think the past 3 years also came with 3 different events that really essentially screwed the town of Hanson. One of them was Whitman going back on their contract and essentially forcing us into a huge deficit that we didn't expect. The other one was the COVID happening, and the other one was the $1.85 million override that everybody just voted for. I understand that not everybody agrees with marijuana. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not trying to put drugs on the street or anything like that. From what I understand, these facilities are a lot more secure and a lot more verification with ID than any other place that we have, liquor stores, drug stores, things like that. I'm just looking for a way to bring in revenue to the town. That's simply what I'm doing.
Sure thing. So, Mr. Malisi, would you be open if, because I think, and I don't know, but just kind of gauging past talks, if this was something that the Board of Selectmen was to provide their own article for town meeting, would you be willing to pass over this just, because Ms. Federoff, you know what I mean? I think the process of going forward with this might not quite work with the way that it's written. So just to make sure that, one, we do it the right way, the proper way, and the town doesn't, trip over itself trying to walk forward on it, that we do it the right way. So I wasn't sure if you had any insight to this.
So I can tell you why I think, and I just got this today, but I'm just looking at it now and I can tell you one reason why this thing is gonna go down in flames. So for example, applicability, marijuana retailers shall be permitted in all zoning districts of the town of Hanson. So what that means is it can go in the residential, it can go in the industrial, it can go in the business, it can go in, I don't know, what other districts do you have? And so I think there's some problematic stuff in here. That said, and for zoning petitions, this is the process. So you submit to the board then has 14 days to submit it to the planning board. The planning board has a public hearing, and they have to post 2 times in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks before the hearing. Then they have to submit a report to town meeting, and all of that stuff has to happen within 65 days. So this is, for a zoning petition, it's kind of a tight time frame.
So on section 4 of this, when it says eligible marijuana locations or establishments, right? It goes through and says, so I understand what you're saying as kind of like a broader on section 1A, it says all permit in all retail establishments. On section 4, it actually goes through individual assessors maps that were specified by the planning board that's there
That
stating.
were in their prior petition, right?
Which is in the prior petition, exactly, yeah. So I don't want to have retail marijuana establishments next to Indian Head. That's,
Yeah, exactly.
But so my understanding was that it can be permitted retailers in the town of Hanson in all zoning districts, but then on section 4 of this, it would actually go through and establish what zoning districts it can be permitted in.
See, what I would do, and I can't do it to your petition because it's yours, it's not theirs. I can do what they want me to do on theirs. But I would have just struck that whole sentence because there's an internal conflict there.
Okay.
But,
So-
I mean, that's an example for me looking at it literally for 30 seconds. That said, there's certainly a template, right? And Mr. Weeks will speak to it. They allowed marijuana retailers at the first town meeting.
I was gonna say, you and me wrote
Yeah.
this bylaw, so I was gonna ask, what did you change in terms of the edits? Because Kate and I have a long history of working on this exact language. It looks very, very familiar,
Yeah.
because we presented it.
So on Article 3-24, the marijuana retailer, I struck section 2 and 3, and then also struck the word prohibited, and then just did permitted within the town of Hanson.
So all of that zoning language, was that already present? Because I don't have it obviously side by
So
side.
there's 2 different petitions for retail marijuana. There's this one, this is a general bylaw change.
Yeah.
That is prohibited and then permitted. And there's this one right here, which is the 3-page catastrophe. That is the zoning for all the districts that are here. That being said, back to Mr. Dyer's original question, yes, if the board would agree to get this going for the 2022 election, then I would definitely pass over this article.
So that was my other question, not to cut you off, Mr. Muisi, but for us to opt in, would it be the same thing as opting out, Ms. Federoff?
So that's the piece that's sort of unclear to me, because, so when they wrote 94G, they were thinking only about communities that were trying to prohibit, right? And they did the two-prong approach if you were a yes town, and Hanson was a yes town, meaning they voted to legalize recreational marijuana, so you had to do the ballot and the bylaw. It doesn't say, and typically to pass a zoning bylaw to allow a use, you don't need a ballot. It's just strange to marijuana that when you're prohibiting, you need a ballot and a bylaw. So sometimes the way it works is the way you get in is the way you come out. So for example, civil service, if you do it through a ballot vote, you have to get out for a ballot vote. If you do it by a town meeting vote, you get out by a town meeting vote. So you go out the same way as you came in. But this question hasn't been answered and the legislation is silent, so I actually have to do research on it. So the answer is, I don't know. So it may just be.
Glad I could stump you.
Yeah, exactly. So it may just be a town meeting vote, or it may be a two-prong vote. But either way, we're not forced to put this petition on this upcoming town meeting because of the timeframes that we have. So the good news about you submitting it sort of later in the game means that we don't have to put it on this town meeting warrant, but we could put it on the next warrant with a competing bylaw to go back to what Joe and I had worked on in the past.
So my only question to that is just for my own clarification.
Yeah.
We can strike citizens petitions
We
from
can't
making.
strike it, but he hasn't met the, so you guys have 14 days from the day this thing is certified to send it to the planning board. 14 days brings us to, I don't know, someone who has a calendar. Beth,
Yeah.
of course she does. 14 days brings us to, hang on,
September 12th.
the 7th, right? The 7th, because
Does that
today's the
include Labor
24th.
Day? I mean, do they get extra day because of Labor Days? in
They
there?
might even get an extra day because of Labor Day, I don't know, but just say the 7th, it could be the 8th, I don't know. So then they have 65 days for the planning board to hold the public hearing, so that brings us to, that's 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, whatever, well past October
42,
4th.
49, 56.
I'm sorry, Kate, are you saying they have up to 65
Yeah,
days?
they
So
have
they could shorten that period of
They
time?
could shorten it. So if you wanted, okay, so if we're gonna be super ambitious, if you wanted me to hurry up and try to get our own bylaw done, which, okay, to Joe's point, we already have it done to some degree, we could put both on for a public hearing at the same time and put them both on the town meeting warrant for the fall. We would have to be super diligent.
Yeah, my only thing is just from a very basic standpoint, so could we, I just don't want to set a precedent that is gonna be somehow be taken advantage of in the future.
Yeah.
If someone gets 100 verified signatures for special town meeting, or gets the 10 for the annual town meeting, because of that zoning timeframe, we can say despite the signatures, it still can't make it?
Yeah,
Because I think the easier thing would just to be,
It's still going on a town, it's still going on a warrant. it's
oh, that's
just
what I'm
not
asking,
gonna run
okay.
this warrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The May warrant.
No, but he's saying, can we set a precedence, if Mr. Melisi has met the requirement of the signatures, but for the fact that there's all these hearing requirements, which I'm not dismissing because I know they're critical, do we have the right to not include that in the town warrant?
Because it's in our bylaws, town meeting bylaws. We
Yeah,
have to
so-
let it be on the
So you
warrant.
have the full allotment of days. So if the planning board can't get it done in 30 days, and that's what we're looking at right now, essentially, is like 30 days, plus or minus a couple days. If they can't physically get it done by then, they
Mm-hmm.
can't get it done, and they're still compliant with the law, because they had 65 days to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You would put it on the next warrant.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wouldn't put it in this warrant and say, Mr. Melissi is passing over because we haven't been able to comply with we just simply would not put it in the warrant.
Yeah, you just wouldn't put it in the warrant.
Okay.
Because you wouldn't want to confuse people and bring people out for no reason, because I imagine,
That's what I'm
there's
confused about,
interest.
though. So that's the part, I apologize, because I
No.
just
drill
hold
down
my
this.
hand on this
Drill
one.
down on it.
Mr. Young, do you mind just coming to the podium real quick?
Mr. Melissi, does your petition specifically say for the October town meeting? Or does it say-
It does, October 4th, 2021,
Oh.
Yeah,
at
it's right on the top
It
of
says
it.
On the top.
specifically, if it
That's-
says specifically, you have to put.
That's
well,
what
but if the Board of Selectmen decides to adopt this, then it would.
The town bylaw is explicit, it says, any subject matter presented to the Board of Selectmen with a proper number of signatures shall be
Yeah, shall be.
inserted.
That's my point. It's just for technicality. I know I'm beating a dead horse on this one. It's
No,
just,
no.
if you pull it, it's different than us pulling it.
Yes.
The bylaws, the way I understand it, we have to put it on there, on the warrant. We can't just simply say, you got the signatures, sorry, we don't think it's a zoning, even if it's the worst bylaw or the worst article on the planet, if they make the signatures,
You
they
know-
have to do it, right?
So the reality is, I should have been more precise. It will never be approved.
Right,
So,
I agree with that.
because if you don't have sufficient time and you're complying with those timeframes,
Yeah.
without a public meeting, it's a fatal flaw.
That I agree with.
Okay.
Okay, now we're talking the same language. Thank
Okay.
you, okay.
But may I just ask a question about that? So the deadline for this, for the special petition should then be 65 days from the town meeting though, correct? Because if anybody puts in a bylaw that needs to go to a zoning bylaw, then they're ultimately screwed to begin with.
Well, they won't have a if the planning board can get it done in time, they would have a compliant bylaw. So anything's possible, right?
Okay.
And that's why the law reads the way it reads. But, so 40A, which governs zoning, gives you that 65-day window. 39, which governs town meeting, doesn't give you that window.
I haven't talked to anybody on planning about this. I mean, this is literally the same article that was brought in 2018, just reversed. One thing that you said before, about being voted in order to prohibit marijuana has to be voted in. I don't want this to be put into law at a town meeting. I specifically told everybody that I had signed this
Ah,
paper,
okay.
that it was going to be a ballot question, they would have to vote on it.
Oh, so you intentionally did that not to try to comply with the law, you just wanted a broader body to opine.
I wanted as many people as humanly possible to have a debate about this and then be informed and go. I don't want it to be rushed in a month and a half. That is not the way that I wanna do this. I wanted to make it so it can go to the town meeting can hopefully approve it to be on the ballot, and at that point, the debate continues on, and then at May of next year, 8 months from now, everybody can make an informed decision at the voting booth. I did not intend this to be, just for clarification, I did not intend this to be, put into law on October 4th. That's not what I wanted to do. Just to make that perfectly clear.
So-
I'm not trying to,
Yeah, that makes it easier for me, I don't have to research the issue then. If you are intentionally making it contingent upon a vote,
yes.
then
And
that's.
it says it right at the top, contingent on an affirmative vote by the town residents at the annual town election to be decided by the town clerk.
So then the only question is, can you force a
Right, can
ballot
you do
vote in this form? I'm not 100% sure on that either,
Well,
actually.
it gives us time, though, and we can always strike a ballot question if it comes to it.
Yeah.
So for me, just so I can follow the process, this thing's getting on the warrant, right? Because you have the signatures. Only you can pull it from it, and you can just say, when the time comes, citizens petition, it's on you read it, only you can say, I strike this, I'm not gonna do it. We don't have the power to do that. The only thing that you could say is that at that time, it might not meet certain requirements, but this thing, citizens petitions are getting on there if they have their certified signatures no matter what.
And
So
Bruce is right, you can't pull it from the warrant.
Right.
You can just not move
you can
it.
pass it over, but even for us, though, we can't pass over, the petitioner has to pass it over. Right, yeah, exactly, okay, I just wanna make sure I'm on, all right.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Just
Chair, if
thinking,
I
yeah.
could just add to
Yeah.
that, Joe. Where it's written wrong, Kate, it would be shot down anyways.
Right,
Even
typos.
before it came to a vote.
Unless someone moved to amend, and so let's presume we had a public hearing at the planning board, and this was all looked at, and someone moved to amend, then the question becomes, is that removal of that language within the scope, right? That's why the zoning bylaws are so complicated, because could someone later challenge that and say, the town meeting vote was invalid, and the public hearing vote was invalid at the planning board, whatever happened there. So invalidate this bylaw if you made that change, for example. But I can't say one way or the other. That's kind of a,
And that's why when I was starting to talk about this, I specifically asked for the Board of Selectmen to assist me in this process. I understand that we do not want to set a bad precedence about, having town council look at everybody's petitions, but like I said before, I did not write this on a napkin. This did not take me 15 minutes to do. I don't have 100 stoner, buddies that signed this for me, right? That's not what I did. These are regular citizens, ranging in age all the way up to, one lady was like 89 years old that signed it for me. Like, they're citizens of this town that at least want to see it on the ballot. Might not agree with it. I've had people who are like, I don't support it, but I want to see it on the ballot because the debate needs to be had. So, that's why I'm specifically asking for the board's assistance in this to help me, so when it does go to town meeting, it can be legal, because I want it to be a valid article. I want it to be a valid ballot question if it goes.
With that being said, Mr. Malisi, I just want, as you said, let's make sure that this is foolproof, that we're doing it right and with the best intentions for the town of Hanson. And, if we want to pass over this at town meeting, I'd be more than happy to personally work with you to make sure that we get it done right, because there's a lot of questions up in the air. How do we go back? Is it a two-pronged vote? One at town meeting, is it also at town election? I'm willing to work with you and sponsor it at the next town meeting if need be. I just want to throw it out there just to say, let's work together on it, let's make sure it's the right thing for the town.
I appreciate that, Mr. Dyer. The one thing that I'm not saying that we have to rush in this, because we certainly don't want to rush in this, but also in the other thing, Halifax and Whitman, somebody messaged me from Whitman, one of the Board of Health or officials over there was like, we're thinking about doing the same thing, right? And I'm like, please don't. I was like, we want your tax money. I was like, we don't want to give it to yours, right? So, it's a little bit of, I would really like it to be on the ballot for next May, on the.
Oh, yeah, for next May. Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And if we
It
can
wouldn't be for next, 2 years out or anything like that. It would be for the next May,
Yeah,
yeah.
if we can do, if I can work with you guys on this, and then I can strike through it in October, and then come next May at the town meeting that we have, we can reintroduce the articles and have it on that ballot. That's completely fine with me. I just didn't want to come here with 10 verified signatures saying, people want this, right?
Right.
People take you a lot more seriously when you have 100 verified signatures from registered voters in the town of Hanson. This is actually something that people want to do. So.
Absolutely. So no, I'm willing to do that and submit it.
I'd recommend though, because
Mr. Weeks.
I'd recommend that, because I'm almost positive that Mr. Young was actually the chairman at the time of the Board of Selectmen when I was the chair of the planning board when we did this. So if we go that route, I suggest that we actually do something similar where we kind of challenge or charge the planning board again with
Yeah,
reviewing this. So it's not just one person doing it, it's a
They'd have
collection.
to anyway.
Yeah, but I guess the point is that the planning board is the one that actually kind of put a lot of this stuff together. I remember having open meetings with the chief of police who had a whole bunch of great stuff to say, which was actually very, very fantastic. So to allow for that to happen again, I think would be great, and to kind of work through this with the two boards. But I'm all about process, policy, doesn't matter whether I agree with something or don't. It looks like you have a decision to make come October 4th, because it's getting on the warrant no matter what. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
and I appreciate all the work that you did with this, because this is good.
And the one thing is too, is, I'm not here to hamstring town government in any way, shape, or form, right? I'm a citizen of the town, you guys are an elected person of the town, we should be able to work together in situations like this. So if I strike this on October 4th, and I have your reassurance that you'll help me get it on for next town meeting, and it'll be a proper legal article, and then the ballot for next May, I have no problem doing that.
Ms. Kemen.
Couple of things. I echo what Mr. Weeks is saying. It seems to me as though the easier part is to say, we're going to allow retail marijuana. That's like one paragraph. It's the planning part.
Yeah.
It's the zoning part, that it's the hearing that's going to require the engagement of the planning board, et cetera, et cetera. So I appreciate where you're coming from in making the offer, but it seems to me as though we can have our attorney generally look at this, make recommendations to each respective board, the planning board and then us, about these articles, and then move forward as though we were presenting them ourselves. That said, I think more than a mere assurance is needed to give Mr. Melisi. If we're expecting him to pass over it, and I know it's a gentleman's handshake, but it seems to me as though if I were in his place and I had been taking a fair amount of abuse at Shaw's collecting signatures, I'd want to know that, that I was gonna have the full backing of the board, and so I'm suggesting we take a vote.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So,
Mr. Hickey has a question. I've seen that face before.
so,
I've seen that at the recreation interview. Go ahead.
Frank, I'm not gonna hinder you from doing this, but I am 100% not going to support it. I've said right from the start when this first came out that I'm against retail marijuana in the town of Hanson. And like I said, I'm not gonna hinder you, I will not hinder the board, but I will vote against it if it gets on the ballot. I'll vote against it at town meeting, I'll vote against it tonight, tomorrow, next week, and any other chance I get.
And I generally appreciate that. I actually truly appreciate that, because you know what? That is your opinion. That is your right as an American citizen. That's completely fine. I have no issue with that. This is, I don't want, I'm not going out telling everybody to vote for this. I'm telling everybody to have a debate about this so they can make a decision.
Absolutely.
We got hit with 1.85. When I opened up my tax bill from last quarter, I almost threw up at the amount, and I don't even live in a mansion. I live, well, the Pembroke side of Hanson, but, so the problem is, everybody's been complaining about the taxes going up, and nobody's come up with a damn solution to bring commercial tax revenue in this town.
Right.
So I appreciate that you won't support it, I appreciate that you won't want to vote for it, that is your God-given right. But I looked at every option that I could possibly think of to bring in revenue to this town, so the voters next year don't get hit with another $800,000 worth of overrides and things like that. I don't do it. I don't smoke it. I don't do anything like that. I have no interest in doing it. I have interest in the money of it. The money of it is where I'm coming from. And even if we bring in $10 million in revenue, $900,000 would be with the 9% tax that we bring into the town.
Right,
So,
and we'll get into this at a different time.
Definitely will.
Because for one thing, and, I don't wanna get into, police details, and I don't think you're gonna make the money that you think you are, but we'll hold that off for a different time.
certainly can. And I look forward to it, actually.
I can't
I look
wait.
forward to it.
I'm ready to vote.
Yeah, he's ready to vote.
This is gonna be a long meeting.
Oh, yeah.
so, with that being said, Ms. Kevin, did you want to make,
I want to make a motion that we engage legal counsel and that we work on having Mr. Melisi's citizens warrant tweaked such that it's legally sufficient to present on the May, and please don't make me repeat this, Greg, because I don't think I can, on the May 2020 warrant and ballot, if so indicated by our attorney's research. And that is in consideration of Mr. Melisi passing it over at the October town meeting.
do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Oh,
Well, I wanna make sure that we do right by Frank,
Okay,
so I am
okay.
voting yes. This is the only time, my friend.
Okay,
so
you
you
know
know.
what? I love it. I have it no other way.
That's honestly, I come in the same place. It's not up to one person or even 5 people to do what, tell the townspeople what's best for the townspeople.
Exactly.
No matter what, they're smart enough. They know what they know what they want for their town. We should not deny them a debate. It makes perfect sense.
And that's why I
all
voted
want.
yes.
I just want the debate, and I just want the citizens to be able to choose again. It's a different opinion than it was 3 years ago.
Awesome.
Well,
I'll talk
Mr.
to Kevin,
Melisi,
talk to you
I
about it.
want to thank you for being so engaged, for being so pleasant to deal with, for being open to feedback. It's been a great experience to deal with you. I'm sure this isn't the last we'll see of you. You've stepped up for recreation, and I just want to acknowledge your contribution, so we
Well,
thank
thank you
you.
very much. I appreciate everybody on the board, with the exception of Mr. Kenny over there, for hearing my rant, and also to Mrs. Sloan as well. She didn't have to do what she did, and it was awesome, so.
So, Mr. Melisi, that's it for your
That's it.
petitions.
You want me to keep going? I can keep
No,
going.
no,
Okay.
no, but
Maybe
I-
like the Gettysburg Address up here or something, if you'd
No.
like.
Oh, my God.
Oh, that was,
so-
what happened at number 2?
Oh, we have the other.
So, but this is something that you don't get taught in Schoolhouse of Rock, of how something becomes a bill, or,
House of Rock.
You know, so.
It was a wonderful experience, let me tell you. I'll be doing it again multiple times.
So excellent. So with that being said, anything else on citizens petitions, Ms. Green?
Yes, Mr. Chair, so we do have our town clerk here, and we do have another additional citizens petition that was certified by our town clerk with the signatures. And I'm not really sure how to introduce this one.
Yeah, this is,
It's in our
this is
packet.
one to
I'm going to allow our town clerk to speak of this one.
allow this
Town council.
board to remove current members of the board all the board members of the zoning board of appeals at the first town meeting, the first board meeting following the town meeting. So that's the nature of this petition. I don't know if there's someone here to speak on it, but I will say, it does acknowledge that it's a non-binding resolution, so it's merely advisory. That said, I think there's a question as to whether or not it's legal, because there's another bylaw in place that doesn't allow removal except for cause, right? So you need cause to remove board members, for various reasons. Furthermore, they're just appointed for a term, and there's a question as to legality. That said, it's a close question, so it's not something that couldn't be, it must be added to the warrant regardless, with that caution that there's that risk that it's not considered legal, and we'd wait for the AG to opine on that. But either way, it is non-binding, it's advisory, that's an executive function, it's not a legislative function by the town meeting. So that's what's before you.
All right, so at this time, you're just saying
It goes on the
it
warrant.
goes on the warrant, and then at that time, we'll address it.
Yep.
Okay. So anything else for citizens petitions, Ms. Green?
No, that will complete the citizens petition.
I'd like to
Ms. Kemet, yep.
say something about this. So I am embarrassed that it's taken a citizen's petition, that people feel this passionately about the issue that I know we can't talk about for a variety of reasons, because we've been told by legal counsel that we can't talk about it, and in the cause piece. But I am embarrassed that it took a group of citizens coming to us with a citizen's petition to remove ZBA members when we've gotten a number of complaints. And we have been hamstrung as a board and stopped from discussing it. And that's all I've got to say. I'm embarrassed, and I'm sorry that it took you guys doing this. Whoever you are, I don't even know who submitted it. I didn't even look at the signatures. I feel as though this board should have been able to discuss whether it was in a closed session or an open session, and should have been able to take action or not, right? I'm not opining one way or the other whether there are the issues that you've talked about or that you're alleging. I don't know, because we haven't discussed them and we haven't been able to investigate them. So that's all I've got to say. It's just, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm embarrassed that it's gotten to this point.
Noted. Thank you. So with that being said, there is just one more thing about citizens petitions that I just wanted to bring to the attention of the board. And I just want to make sure that, Mr. Weeks, you talked about setting the precedents. So when it comes to citizens petitions, there are strict instructions on here along the lines of that the signature page must be attached to the, well, I'll just use this example, has to be attached to the wording of the petition. And the whole idea behind that is just to make sure you don't say, oh yeah, don't you want to put a petition into town meeting saying that we're the best town ever? And
Bait and
then,
switch.
and then bait and switch the signature sheet. So I just want to make sure that when we move forward, that we are setting the precedents that, we talked about it at last meeting, which is make sure you chat with the town clerk. She's wonderful, her assistant is wonderful, and that we make sure that we're moving forward in the right direction. Mr. Malisi.
So the one thing that I think we need more clarification about that, and I know Beth reached out to somebody else, is the multi-page petition. So that zoning bylaw is 3 pages long. How would you have the signatures on? Would you have them on the signature lines on the back of each page?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how, okay.
Okay, yep, so when in doubt, as we said last meeting, check with the town clerk to make sure that things are valid, because you went through a lot of effort to making sure that you get these signatures, and trust me, I've collected signatures before too. And it's it's just not a day, an easy day, so, but thank you very much for everyone who has stepped up and submitted citizens petitions. That's what our government is all about, is citizen involvement. So with that being said, with nothing else being said there, we are going into presentations by the Conservation Commission regarding pond management. Mr. Clemens?
Would you like me at the podium?
Yes, sir, thank you.
This is not a presentation per se, it's simply a recommendation. But before I say that, I'll say, relative to early discussions tonight, I have no plans to relocate out of the town. And if anyone has such plans for me, I'd appreciate them letting me know. But they can save their breath, because I'm not going anywhere. As the board is aware, the Conservation Commission has suggested 3 articles for the upcoming October town meeting. One is on the land acquisition thing with CPC funds and conservation funds. The other 2 relate to what we call pond management. And all we want to propose is that the Board of Selectmen, with their position of being basically an umbrella over almost pretty much all the other boards and committees in town, and the topic of pond management being so broad as it is, we would love to invite the Board of Selectmen to actually sponsor the 2 articles, which don't have numbers yet, but one would be to see if the town would vote to establish a budget line for pond management, and the other is to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash some to be determined for pond management for the balance of fiscal 2022. Conservation is clearly in favor of pond management, but we see it as being too large a topic and too broad a topic with many different subtopics for our small commission, which is short a member and which has only part-time help, to really be the sole or even the main proponent for. It's a town-wide issue, and especially in the last couple of years, where people are making more and more use of outdoor natural resources in our area, questions come from all angles, sometimes unexpected, about this problem or that problem with the algae or invasive species of other kinds, or name the topic. But the Board of Health already does some work in pond management with their coliform testing at bathing beaches. I can easily foresee the Highway Department with their role of managing drainage, potentially being involved with stormwater management, where stormwater itself is directed into or near a pond. The conservation is certainly interested, and one of our regulatory responsibilities is not just the land bordering ponds, but the land underneath ponds. But I don't think it would be doing justice to the topic if it was just conservation proposed in these articles. You look at the town of Pembroke, you look at the town of Halifax, who share great ponds with us, and they pretty much have taken the route. My understanding is this Board of Selectmen is very active in sponsoring the different actions that have been required and will continue to be required for those ponds. But we have 3 ponds entirely within Hanson. We have McQuon Pond, we have Indian Head Pond, we have Wampatuck Pond, and frankly, our management of these has either been non-existent or it's been piecemeal. And I think it would correct or make a big step towards correcting that if this establishment of a budget line, and then hopefully the placement of some number above 0 in the line for the time being and looking towards the future, if the Board of Selectmen could be behind it, and you certainly have conservation partnering with you on that, but simply just as a point of, call it leadership, it would be wonderful if these 2 articles could be sponsored at the October town meeting by the Board of Selectmen. And the explanations have been written, and we would certainly pitch in from our conservation corner to support it. But that's a proposal we'd like to make to the board.
Great. Ms. Kemet?
So are you, I just want to clarify, you're proposing the article, you're looking for us to support you?
No, we're looking for the Board of Selectmen to propose it.
Okay, I
We're
thought
an
that, but
alternative.
because it said in our warrant that you're proposing them, so I
Well, I
just
thought the
wanted
warrant
to.
wasn't closed yet, because tonight you closed
Okay.
it, right?
Okay,
But our proposal, which we emailed, or our staff provided it, we just needed it to start somewhere, but we think it will actually be better for the citizens of the town and for the accomplishment of the various goals that it's intended to cover, if the selectmen show they're behind it by sponsoring it, and whether it's us, or Board of Health, or Highway, or anyone else, I'm sure you'll find lots of partners, depending on what issue might come up in the future that might require funding.
well, that would actually be, my question is, look, algae blooms this year has been like crazy, you know, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And we've had, historically, we've had issues with the ponds, and I know a lot of citizens have reached out and expressed concerns, health concerns, about their dogs swimming, their kids swimming, and I'll leave my editorial comments on that. But I guess what I am supportive of something being done in the ponds, and I'm supportive of us using town dollars to do it. What I am unclear about is who would be the responsible party for following through on executing a plan, coming up with a plan and executing a plan.
Well, it seems to me, and it seems to the Conservation Commission, that these selectmen have already in the past sponsored certain things. For example, there was an Article 11, the special town meeting on May 7th, sponsored by the selectmen. The motion was made, Richard Flynn, the second by Steve Amico, to see if the town would vote to transfer free cash of some money to treat Oldham Pond. There was also some activity in 2015 related to the cleanup of Monpont Pond, which I believe was sponsored by the selectmen. But we weren't doing that from the basis of having a line in our budget that enabled us to address these things from a position of preparedness. We addressed everything ad hoc, piecemeal, and inconsistently year to year. In all the years since the last decade we've been talking about, some years Hanson has done nothing. Some years Pembroke has done something and kind of hoped Hanson would help, same for Halifax. We haven't exactly been a dependable partner to them, even if the partner sometimes says, no, we're not helping you on this, but we haven't framed the planning for the pond, where the procurement officer is responsible to the Board of Selectmen, where no matter what almost any kind of contract it would be, certainly of this type, we would hope that the selectmen would simply lend their name and support to these two articles at this town meeting, so that we'd be better prepared to do whatever future situations call for.
So in a nutshell, you're saying the selectmen would also be responsible for execution?
It depends on what it is, what the problem is.
Well, for instance, getting rid of Phragmite or treating
We
the
could
algae.
make a long list and take the
Yeah,
rest of the meeting,
yeah.
but
I mean,
yes.
So I guess, what kind of dollar amounts are we looking at? And then I am absolutely supportive, but what I don't want to do is come up with a sum of money and have no plan about how that's actually going to be spent, and I don't, maybe there is a pond management plan, or maybe we need to work on a pond management plan. I don't have a problem with your concept of allocating money at town meeting and addressing it, and I definitely think we need to do that, and I generally don't think anybody on the board's gonna be against that. And I know in the past, we've gotten grants through Cutler and others at the state level. That's something we can't really count on, so we probably need to decide how much we can spend. But I guess I just am concerned about saying, sure, let's throw $10,000 at it without necessarily having like a solid plan and an understanding of who's responsible for executing.
Well, we could go, if you will, Mr. Chairman, we could go around and around on this, and obviously everyone's concerned. I think the main thing is, there's two questions right now. One is, establish a budget line item, which doesn't put a number in it.
Yeah,
It's simply
okay,
saying,
yeah.
in the course of town government, one of the things that deserves attention, or potentially deserves attention year to year, and therefore aligned to the budget, is pond management. And the other thing is, for this particular year, what amount do we want to put in it? Maybe we want to start with $1, I don't know. But we do have a little bit of a precedent relating to what the selectmen have done in past years. In 2015, they proposed $6,200. back in 2011, the proposal was for $15,000. It's going to vary.
Okay.
There are so many projects and sub-projects and different ways to do them. Some of them might involve volunteers. No one can predict everything that should go into a pond management plan or what it will cost this year or next year or the year after. But we have to have a plan for how to make the plan. And this will, I think, frame it in a way that it really, without intending the selectmen to bear the burden alone, by no means do we intend that, it shows that at the top of town government, we recognize we have multiple resource areas that we need to be more organized in how we manage them. We hope this would, we hope and believe that would start here. Certainly won't finish, but we'll be able to have better quality, more organized discussion, the balance of this year and future years as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hickey, any questions or comments?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Phil, you've kind of put the selectmen in an awkward position, I think, because if we don't support the healthy ponds and lakes that we have in town, it looks like we're against it. But if we do support it, my problem is I don't know how much money it's going to cost. Now, you know that I'm on the Odom Pond Committee, and since I've been a selectman, we've had trouble with Pembroke twice. What selectmen have done in the past is when Pembroke has come and asked Hanson for money because we don't pay, at town meeting, we allocate the money and pay our share. It was $9,200 my first year, 2017, and then in 2020, last year, they asked for another $9,200. Obviously, they didn't ask for anything in 18 or 19. Yeah, it was 17 and 20. So it's periodical that Pembroke is looking for money. But I guess what I'm looking for is a commitment, you know, out of you guys on what you would pay.
That's an issue. Our budget is very limited. We don't pay for very much. We are strained as it is to cover both the activities we do and what they cost in general, without adding ponds to the above water responsibilities we have. But holding Pembroke and Halifax off for a moment, there are 3 ponds entirely within Hanson, for which basically we have no plans whatsoever. That's on us, the whole town. And I would respectfully invite the selectmen to lead the way towards a better way of planning by sponsoring to have a line item in the budget for pond management so that something can be done as opposed to nothing or do it piecemeal year by year. It would simply, I think, improve the logistics of how you budget. You would have a place in the budget that's waiting for a dollar amount to be proposed year by year, depending on what the current plan
That's what I
calls
was
for.
gonna say, yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, I do. It looks like Article 6 creates the fund, Article 7 funds the fund. If you stick it with us, we have the ability to go with Article 6, so it, you know, it's not just symbolic. I mean, we definitely want to take care of the environment. And people do fishing derbies out of these ponds, they're swimming in these ponds. We want to make sure that people are safe. So I think having the line item is important, because it allows for budgeting. But for Article 7, if we propose it, we can set the tone, right? I mean, it leaves the conversation within the appropriate, well, not the appropriate committee, but within this committee, so we can establish a plan for the future and then fund it appropriately as needed. We can make these amendments and go to town as we need to. So I do agree with what you're saying, because I think it does put us in a kind of an awkward spot, but at the same time, it does give us a level of control, and we can plan.
My concern is that we've always been in an awkward spot. Let's make it less awkward
Yeah,
Mr.
I don't disagree with
by
that.
having a framework for this.
Mr. Clemens, can I just ask, because I've been taking some classes with the Massachusetts Conservation Commission, and I was always kind of blown away by what is your specific jurisdiction as a conservation commission? Is it the species in the water? Is it the quality of the water? Or, could you please, because I don't think that, a lot of people think, oh, conservation, it covers everything, clean air, water. But I found, going through these courses, that it's very specific, and sometimes it doesn't always cover water quality.
The management of conservation areas, conservation land parcels that I've attended courses on and workshops on has been primarily dry land and the wetlands that are the border between that and surface water. It has not been about ponds per se. But again, if you read the regulations, we have responsibility for land under the water too. So it's like everything but the water. But that's what people swim in, that's what they have fishing derbies in, that's what their dogs jump into, that's what they boat on or take stand-up paddle lessons on. It's, we're willing to be consultants as best we can. I get calls at home, what's this, what's that, and I try to help, but we can't do it alone. Again, we need to get to a more coherent approach as a town for having some, at least, place in the budget for resources to do things that we aren't, as a commission, specifically responsible for. We'll certainly keep running our conservation areas. In fact, we're trying to do a lot more management now. We've got some new blood and new energy in the commission, and we're doing that. But the ponds, we think, are a bridge too far for us at this moment. We're willing to help, but let's bring the topic into the full light of day as far as the town as a whole goes. And I would like to see the Board of Selectmen feel less awkward the next time another town asks us for money, or the next time we see something completely within our own borders that we want to do a little bit of something about. I don't know the dollar amount, it could be small, it could be large, depends on the issue.
So with that being said, it sounds like we need to create some sort, and I know everyone cringes when I say, or someone mentions, maybe we need to create a committee, or maybe we need to expand a purview of a certain committee to say we need to start managing ponds, just because it doesn't really necessarily fall into conservation and it's kind of overlooked.
I would humbly suggest, and this is shooting from the hip a little bit, if such a committee could be made up with representation from conservation, from Board of Health, from Highway, maybe some others I'm overlooking, and maybe recreation, there you go, and maybe a couple of citizens at large who have studied limnology or ichthyology, or who knows what the ology would be. Whatever it took to start putting a shape to it and make proposals year by year for whatever was called for.
So, Ms. Kevin,
Yeah, so I love that, even though I'm loath to create yet another committee.
Call it a coalition, don't call it a committee.
It's like, death by 1,000 committees, but this does seem like an area that has gotten short shrift historically in the town. At times, the Board of Health has taken the lead on it, at times, Conservation has taken the lead, the Selectmen have taken the lead. It seems to me as though, I absolutely support having it as an operating budget line item and some token amount just to get this conversation going. But I like your idea of establishing a committee and looping in the old, see, you won't be by yourself anymore, Jim. It will be all the ponds. It won't just be all of them. And then I would even go so far as to say that I think we would task that committee with coming up with a pond management plan, which may require us to hire, again, a word I hate to say out loud, consultant, to help us, because this problem has been kicked down the road for so many years and so long that I think it's probably unreasonable to expect a group of well-intentioned volunteers to be able to solve it.
And just to kind of touch upon about hiring consultants, there are a lot of grants out there, especially ponds are kind of an epicenter of interest. You have endangered species, clean air and water, you have recreation. There's a lot of grants out there where I think that this is something that we should continue the conversation for, to create this committee and to create the advisory component behind it and their charge, maybe for another night, just because we're getting late into this meeting. But with that being said, do I hear a motion to support
For us to, we're proposing.
to sponsor,
it,
thank
yeah.
you, to sponsor Article 6 and 7.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Well, we putting a dollar amount on Article 7 at all? Or just a placeholder
Just,
right
let's
now?
just put a placeholder for right now, and
Yeah.
Mr.
We have
Clemens
lots of-
can
I have
circle
lots of
back.
questions about this, in just terms of just finding a dollar amount.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I know you took lots of classes, but I watch lots of YouTube videos, so I feel pretty confident that I can contribute in some way.
Awesome. No, that's pretty good. All right, so with that being said, moved, seconded, all in favor? 4-0. So,
Thank you, we'll stand with you.
thank you. So with that being said, item 3A, discuss proposed articles for October 4th, 2020 town meeting warrant. With that being said, if it's okay with you guys, last time we read this off, I think we had about 17 articles or so. Now we're up to 33. For folks sitting at home who don't necessarily get the pleasure of reading the article or the warrant, I'm just going to run through the titles real quick and just maybe a quick summary. I don't have my spreadsheet. Do you guys have a spreadsheet down there by any chance? I know we had it in Dropbox, just not here. If not, I can just go off of it. So Article 1 is to do unpaid bills. Article 2 is to transfer free cash to supplement Article 5 of the last year's town meeting. Article 3 is to transfer a sum of money for the Recreation Enterprise Fund. Article 4 is to see if the, oh, thank you, even better. So I was on Article 4. It is to design fees for HMS, design fees, sorry, not to design, design fees for the Hanson Middle School artificial turf. Article 5 is to purchase of 485 Winter Street. Article 6, establish budget 122 line item for pond management, which we just discussed. Article 7, funding for fiscal year 22 pond management line item. Article 8 is library siding replacement and painting and exterior improvements. Article 9 is for revaluation fund. 10 is local option to enter into agreements for affordable housing. 11, town hall phone system upgrade. 12, tow behind leaf vacuum. 13, install mask compliance system at Poor Meadow Brook. Article 14, stormwater management compliance funding. 15, the citizens petition for ZBA. 16, citizens petition for amending all retail marijuana. Article 17, citizens petition to permit marijuana retailers. Article 18, so, this is proposed by the Selectmen, impose meal sales tax. 19, capital needs assessment of town facilities. 20, amend general bylaw articles 2-2, limit for selectmen, amend general bylaw article 2-2, term limit for selectmen. 21, declare 62 Ocean Ave as surplus. 22, rescind Article 32 of May 5th, 1999, annual town meeting, Friday closure of town hall. 23, make town administrator able to sign off on one-day liquor license, and that'd be special legislation. 24, amend general bylaw Article 2-12 to add Juneteenth as a holiday. Article 25th, create a new assistant director / adult library services for the library. Article 26 is fund assistant director for that newly created position of library services. 27 is amend general bylaw Article 2-12 compensation plan. Article 28, funding for vacation buyback and retirement for fire personnel. Article 29, supplemental funding for fiscal year 22, budget 220, line 40, fire and ambulance salaries. 30A or 30B, selectmen or citizens petition regarding citizens' requirement for boards and committees. Article 31, Water Department, transfer monies from 6/29/20 annual town meeting article to purchase vacuum trailer. Article 32, transfer monies from 10-1/18 special town meeting to replace Crystal Springs well number 1. And Article 33, transfer from water surplus to 5-4/15 annual town meeting article 23, and that's for the water department.
I have 4 articles that I requested that did not appear in our warrant.
Okay.
The first was funding and creating a full-time building inspector/enforcement officer.
Okay.
The second was a bylaw requiring all contractors to complete all outstanding issues such as drainage and to pay all outstanding taxes and address all code violations before they are allowed to apply for a permit to build or apply to planning or ZBA for approval. Also, no department or committee will take any application under consideration without full disclosure of who the applicant actually is. To that end, I'm calling this my transparency article, any application by a trust LLC or any entity by anyone other than an individual will be accompanied by sufficient documentation, for example, articles of incorporation, trust document, etc., such that there is full transparency as to all parties that have a financial interest in the proposed work project. Right now, we have people applying in all kinds of ways that are not really clear, and I think if we're asking people to file disclosures about their financial involvement, then I think that this is in keeping with that transparency. Also, all BOS-appointed board and committee members are required to file a conflict of interest disclosure with the BOS no less than 14 days before they apply for a permit/license to perform any work subject to a hearing or determination by the ZBA, Conservation Commission, Water Department, Board of Health, or Planning Board in which they have a financial interest or in which any member of their family has a financial interest. And to the extent that they fail to file such disclosure prior to beginning work and prior to the BOS being given notice, it will be grounds for immediate removal by the BOS from their appointed position without a hearing. And then also, I would like to request a bylaw that requires that anybody serving on any town board be a resident, which I think
Okay,
we're already
let's
going to do
cover
that one.
Okay.
I'd like to know why those articles that I requested and copied everybody on were not included in the warrant.
Sorry, it's just an oversight on my side, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Mr. Weeks?
I had 2.
Sure, what would you like,
Yeah,
Mr. Weeks?
so one of them, I think Laura just kind of way more eloquently said it. I just want, so I don't even want to bring it up, it's embarrassing. But I just want to be able to allow the appointing authority for any committee to be able to remove a board member based on recall language in the past. I think I brought that up at the last meeting. And then I wanted to allow for a recall law for the citizens to be able to recall appointed board members based off of the old language that, again, I think Mr. Young here had some say in. Not the new language, because the new language, I think, is too restrictive. The old language, previous language.
Because if I'm drafting them, so the old recall language for the Board of Selectmen that we recently amended under Mr. McGann, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then, and the first one was, what was the first one? I'm so sorry.
At the last meeting, I talked about the idea of there's no, and it kind of speaks to what we were talking about earlier, there's no provision that allows for an appointing authority, whether it be the town moderator for the finance committee or the selectmen or anybody else, to be able to remove somebody from that board based off of what they perceive to be as,
So there's removal language for cause.
but
Let me see, hang on. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what you're saying.
it's for elected officials, I know that, and that's a recall law.
No, so
No,
section
hearing.
14, I think it's Article 2. Any member of an appointed committee absent for
4 meetings,
on.
consecutive meetings.
4 more consecutive meetings may be removed by 2/3 of a vote for those present and voting. The result of the vote shall be recorded with the clerk.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm aware of
There's
that
another thing
one.
for cause.
It
Oh,
is
the
for-
above provision notwithstanding, The appointing authority of any board, commission, or committee may remove a member for just cause after a hearing.
Okay. Where is that again? That line I
It's
missed.
section 14, and I want to say it's Article 2 because it's in Part 2,
Okay, is that general bylaws?
in the general bylaws.
Bylaws
Somehow I missed
of all
that.
boards, commissions, and committees.
Requires a
Pardon?
hearing.
The article of the bylaw governing all boards, commissions, and committees.
I believe so. There's a separate
Yeah.
thing for zoning, but I believe it's for all boards and committees, commissions.
Can we just verify that, because that's news, it's news to me. So I appreciate that, thank you for finding that.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
great. I just want to make it somewhat ironclad, for sure, thank you.
Okay, so I'll send you that tonight, and then if not, if it doesn't work for you, then you and I can talk about the language that you want to propose to these guys.
Appreciate that. And then, just because we're on the topic, I apologize, I don't want to make the meeting any longer than it needs to be. Is it in there, what defines a hearing? Like, who does the hearing? Like, if I want to call a hearing right now?
So it would be the appointing authority who would call for a hearing, and then, of course, you're governed by the open meeting law, so then as a default, so other contracts have more comprehensive notice requirements, but under the open meeting law, you're required to give 48 hours notice for removal if you're having an executive session, and there's a litany of rights that you're entitled to. You can have a
Okay.
lawyer, you can speak on your own behalf, all that stuff.
Okay. Actually, now that you're saying that, I do remember that. But can you send me that? Because I do
Sure.
remember seeing that, now
I'll
that
even
you're
give
talking
it
about
to
that.
you, Joe, for now, and then I'll tell you where it is in the bylaw.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Okay,
that.
print it for me.
Because there was something about it, I remember this, thank you very much.
Everyone ignore me. Hey,
We actually used that in 2016 to remove somebody.
okay.
So, and then one other, are you all
Just
set?
a recall, I'd like a recall, for a citizen's recall provision.
Can you
for that.
clarify what you're talking about on that one? So
Yeah,
you're
I-
asking for them to be able to recall somebody that is appointed?
Yeah,
How does that work, though? Because a recall is a recall of a vote, but they didn't vote for that person.
yeah, that's why we have to kind of wordsmith it.
All
I
right.
was kind of hoping to get it on there so I could see what, that's
You
why I was
just
saying
wanna
last time, I wasn't
throw it
hundred
at the
percent
wall.
sure how to actually get something on
So
the
you want the
warrant.
citizens to be able to trigger the hearing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. If you have a committee that is unwilling to look at something, and the citizens overwhelmingly decide that that is not the right fit for the town of Hanson, they should be allowed to trigger a hearing that forces the conversation.
okay. I'll see what I can come up with.
Mr. Hickey, did you have anything?
I just want Article 20 stricken.
Article 20.
That's the one where the selectmen can only serve 2 terms. It's not broad enough. I proposed this, and I know
Oh.
with everything that's been going on, we haven't, and I dropped the ball on this. I want it to be all elected and appointed positions. I think if, after 2 terms, 6 years, if you don't get what you want done, then it's time to move on.
So do
So, yeah, if we can hold off on this until.
you want to strike it, or do you want to amend it?
You can amend it. It's August 24th. It's until
Okay,
we
then
vote.
I'll amend it.
Okay.
Amend.
Okay, I'll amend it.
So,
All boards, committees, and commissions.
A maximum of, 2 terms or 6 years, whatever,
Whichever is longer or whichever is shorter.
shorter.
Okay. Wow, so strict.
Great, I'm sorry,
No, that's fine.
I'll get in touch with you to.
Okay.
yep, and that was one thing. I know that Laura, you had sent in your stuff prior. So, Jim and Joe, if you guys just emailing, Greer, Lisa, and Kate, just so that it's there, just so that they have an idea where to go.
Absolutely.
One item that I do want to add is IT budget. I talked to Stephen today, our new IT director. He's new. He is just kind of assessing where we are. And he was a little bit shy of trying to submit something or get a line item, article in there, without not really knowing. I said, well, what we can do is we can put a placeholder in there. If you find something in the next couple of weeks that we need to have, let us know so we can put it in the town meeting and move forward. So that's just one thing I wanted to put in there, was just a placeholder. So, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, great.
So, all right. With that being said, do we have to vote to close it tonight? So what's that?
Have to
Close.
move into executive session with not to return to open session, and then when you're in executive session, you can close from there.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just hold off on it for right now.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Are you talking about the warrant?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's new.
I'm already jumping into executive session. I'm sorry. No, you can close the warrant. See, I'm delirious. I take it back.
All right, so just a vote to close the October 4th, 2021 special town meeting warrant.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? All right, 4-0,
And just to be clear, that's going to include everything that we discussed tonight.
correct,
Okay.
yep. All right, so the next item on the agenda is to execute ban for fire truck and road engineering borrowing to be issued September 3rd, 2021. Ms. Green?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, this is a bond anticipation notice, of which the treasurer collector does not, a vote of the Board of Selectmen is not required.
Oh,
For
okay.
this, so we can actually strike that from the agenda,
Okay, thank you.
or pass over it.
So next item on the agenda is to vote to accept a donation of time and services by J. McKinnon Landscape Company at the police station. There was a note from Mr. McKinnon to the Board of Selectmen in the town of Hanson. I would like to inquire about donating my time, J. McKinnon Incorporated Landscape Company, and resources to clean up and professionally landscape your Hanson Police Station property in phases. The scope would include, the scope of work would include, but not limited to, general cleanup, weeding, edging, minor planting, seasonal color, and the front trimming, mulching. In my opinion, that property is a newer town building and is in much need of attention than it's getting. I would like to work with Chief Mix and making the appearance and landscaping at 775 Main Street more desirable. This will be at no cost to the town. To be clear, I am no longer an employee of the said department, so I do not feel that it violates any ethics laws, etc. I have cleared this letter to the selectmen and with Chief Mix prior to. And if you have any questions, please reach out to him. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the donation of time and labor, and
Do we need a dollar amount around that to accept a donation?
No, because it's in-kind donation, so there are two sections of chapter 44. I can't remember what the sections are, but there's the number and the number sub A. So, and one is in-kind and one is,
Okay, we've just never accepted it in kind. I mean, I'm gratefully doing so, but I so moved.
moved?
Yep.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, 4-0. The next item is to discuss process for handling citizens' complaints. Ms. Green?
Yes, actually, there is a policy that's in place that was actually accepted and adopted by the Board of Selectmen in August of 1993. There was a revision which was accepted by the Board of Selectmen in 2008, and then an additional revision acceptance by the Board of Selectmen on November 15th of 2016. It outlines the timeline as far as responding to citizens' complaints. It outlines that basically citizen complaints or complaints shall be first directed to the committee or the department in writing, of which that committee or department would have 2 weeks to respond. If the response is non-satisfactory to the complainant, that complainant can then come to the town administrator for review of the complaint and a response. And basically, if the town administrator, again, if there's not a satisfactory response, then we could bring it to the Board of Selectmen on this. If there's any additional revisions to the complaint policy, we can certainly update this, modify it, and then put it before the board to be accepted with the new provisions.
comments, Ms. Kemet?
Yeah, well, I had asked to have this on the agenda because I just wanted to make sure that there's full transparency amongst the entire board about complaints that we may be getting, and that there aren't situations where, although well-intentioned, it would be the town administrator and the chair who were deciding how to respond. I understand that that can't be the situation all the time, like some of these complaints might be something, you know, that needs to be responded to quickly. And I'm hoping, to the extent that you can respond earlier than the 14 days, we would, and I know you would, even though you're chief cook and bottle wash and, you know, you've got quite a bit on your plate. But what I was hoping was that we might get a little bit of color commentary around how, beyond the 14 days, you know, what's the process? So let's just say we get a complaint, and there's a different section I should mention that addresses complaints about employees. But for what I wanted to talk about was boards and committees, appointed boards and committees. And I'm just kind of wondering, walk me through like what your process would be, you know, maybe, I don't know. I don't like the way somebody spoke to me at a meeting. I'm gonna file a complaint. How would you handle that? Because I do think that, yes, past boards and committees have talked about it, and they've fleshed out the details, but I want to make sure that our board, because I'll be frank with you, there were times in the last year and a half when our board got complaints and we didn't even respond to citizens filing the complaints. And I don't want to speak ill of the dead, so I'm not going to get into who it was or anything else, but we were aware of the complaints and we just didn't respond, and that's completely unacceptable to me. And then the other thing that I noticed is, is this actually on the web? So if I want to complain, do I have a link to this? Because I had asked Greer, and Greer sent it to all of us, and I actually had reached out to Ms. Sloan as well, because I remembered when I got sworn in, getting like a packet, and I thought it had something like this in there, and in fact it did. But I thought to myself, well, if I'm an average Joe out on the street, how do I know that there's a specific complaint form? And maybe I don't want to have to call the office. Like maybe you know, that's going to feel weird. I don't want to have to get into it. I just want to fill out my complaint. And so I guess I'm asking, do we also have this in an accessible manner, both the policy and the complaint form, out on the web?
That's a question I'll look into. I don't know if it's on the web. I've never had to look to see if this policy is on the web, but I will look at that tomorrow to see if this is on it, and where the best place for it to be. I don't know if we want to have it right on the front page or in the how do I section that we have. When you click on that, we could probably put file a
We've got that little-
complaint.
Yeah, we've got that citizen resource, I don't know what it's called, like resources or something that's like a link thing. Yeah, like I thought that would be the right place. And then the other thing that occurred to me is that I think we need to probably be very clear with people that this is not the complaint form for an open meeting law violation complaint, that the state has a very specific form that needs to be filled out for that, and it occurred to me that we ought to have that out there too. Again, I'm not saying like, oh, please file all of these complaints. That's definitely not what I'm saying, but I do want to make sure that if people have got concerns, that we are being responsible about having the procedure and the form so that people are feeling as though we're being responsive to concerns that they're expressing. And for the open meeting law, you know, I think probably just the link to the state's page, because it's very specific that you file first with the public body that you thought, you know, may have violated, and then if you don't get a response that you feel is satisfactory, that then you would go to the Attorney General and, you know, and go down that path. So I just kind of wanted to talk through that. So, I'm sorry, so can you walk me through if, you know, I don't like the way somebody talked to me at the such and such a committee meeting, I thought they were rude and disrespectful. How would we handle that?
Well, how I would handle it is when I receive a complaint, I review the complaint, and I'm a person that likes to do their homework. So I would look into all of the allegations. And again, depending on the complaint, talking to people, looking at laws, looking at bylaws, and again, based on the nature of the complaint and what it includes, I want to make sure that I am, again, transparent with what we've done. I like to provide information, so depending on who the authority is and things like that, I like to direct people to the appropriate authority, so I'll give them all the information, addresses, phone numbers. I put together informational material, and then mail the letters out. And
Now,
that's
so-
that's how I would address a complaint, rather than just kind of throwing something together, not doing any homework on it and getting it out there just for the fact to get it out there.
Now, to the extent that it's a Board of Selectmen appointed committee member, and a year following your complaint, we are now looking at reappointing that person, how would I know that there had been any concerns about that person's conduct? How would I know that?
That's a good question.
You know, the policy doesn't speak to that. You could
Right.
create a policy that the board is copied confidentially on complaints and responses. I mean, you can make that policy if you want.
Yeah, that's kind of where
We
I'm
don't have a
going,
policy on
is
that yet.
I don't want to step in your shoes, I don't want to do your job, and I think you have a good head on your shoulders and a good sensibility about the way you deal with things, that's been my experience. But I do think that we need to make sure that we're being inclusive with everybody knowing what's happening, to the extent we're permitted to do that by law. And so I just want to make sure that if we are getting a complaint, that we're eyes wide open, that we know, so that when those reappointments come up, it's not that, you know, to Kate's point, we would need to have a hearing and all that other stuff. But for reappointments, you don't have to have a hearing. You can simply have knowledge or an inkling that you're not happy with that performance, or that you've got concerns for whatever those reasons may be, and you don't reappoint the person. But absent any kind of a feedback from our office on complaints we might have gotten, I don't think we're making an informed decision about that. Does that make sense?
And then I also would make sure that all the selectmen knew what it was that I sent out. Send emails so that they know, in case they get a call with a question, they'll have exactly what was sent out in response to the complaints.
Okay.
So that, I mean, in the almost 5 months I've been here, that's how I have dealt with the complaints.
So do we need to make a motion?
I was just about to say, do you want, I think maybe make a motion just to amend our complaint policy to notify the board, of the situation.
Yep.
With the complaint and the response that the town administrator sees fit. Just so that way, just, you know, when Ms. Green wants to retire from the town of Hanson, the next town administrator steps in and they see that this is
Yep.
process.
All right, so moved.
Okay, moved, 1 second. Do I have a second?
I have questions? I just have a question. How is that separate from where it says, and report back to the Board of Selectmen regarding resolution of complaints or questions? How is what we're saying different than that
I think we're being
policy?
clearer about saying we need to be emailed. Like, report back is very vague, and does it say the entire board? Does it say what format? I think we're just saying we want to see the whole, or I don't know. I mean,
So we're in agreement right now that we're following this complaint policy, but we are choosing to amend it to make it clear?
I
'Cause
can't say that.
There are complaints, and I don't feel like I'm involved at all.
No,
So-
we're not saying we're following that. And
Yeah.
this predates Ms. Green. I need to say that my concerns predate Ms. Green. And maybe a few on her watch, but that's a different story with advice of counsel. So I want to caution against that. But, so I don't know, what are you saying? That you think it's really a case of us enforcing what the policy we have?
No, the only question I had was, and it sounds like, God, I always feel like I'm putting you on people on the spot, and I don't mean it this way. But do you think that with the current, because I'm an elected official, right? People tell me things. They come to me because I'm supposed to represent them. I'm supposed to represent constituents. Sometimes I agree, sometimes I don't, doesn't matter, bring it up. Do you think that, based on the fact that I know that there are a number of complaints that I have yet to see or know about, do you think that we're following this policy? I know
I
Matt
think you
knows about
just
them.
answered your own question.
No, I'm
Yeah.
it's tough, because I always feel like I'm doing this, like, I don't mean to do it like this.
So Joe, can I step in?
Absolutely.
So Joe, what you would like to do is you would like to be notified of everything that's current and that Ms. Green has followed up on, just as, here's a list of the complaints that I've received in the last, since I've been here or whatever. And I just wanted to let you know this is the action taken and just be brought up to board, up to speed. And then just to reiterate maybe tonight, just let's clarify, we don't necessarily need to revise the complaint policy, but we just want to reiterate this is going to be the procedure moving forward. Is that kind of the motion I'm feeling, or?
Yeah, I think so. I think, for me, it comes back to the board. This is up to the board, obviously, right? I'm just speaking out loud right now. The board is the CEO, not the chair, not the vice chair who steps in, not me, not anybody else. So when I talk about like me being informed, it's the board as a whole being informed, right?
right.
The reason why we don't have a town manager and we have a town administrator is because we like to work through the administrator, but we want to keep the control of a 5-person board, assuming that it's five people, right? I like the idea of the collective body being the decision maker and the jury and the decision maker through, obviously, the town administrator. I don't feel connected to it personally. So I don't know how, like, for example, how many have come in. I don't know what the resolutions are. I've heard from constituents about what those resolutions are. I have not seen them face to face. I have no idea what they are. Sometimes the interpretation is not necessarily correct. So I like to be able to step in and say something and just kind of use my 10+ years of municipal knowledge to try to help out, because I have a little bit here and there. Obviously, there's some things I missed, and I appreciate, Kate, for finding some of those pieces there. But I feel like a lot of these complaints could have been dealt with, a while ago, if this piece about the board being included. I think the only thing that I've received has been something that says you can't talk about the complaint, which is ironic, because then it forces us all into a potential open meeting law violation, which doesn't make it, the grand irony of that is fantastic. So I'd like to just, whatever we have to do to make sure that this collective body can actually execute the duties of a CEO of the town, that's what I want to do. I don't know what that language is, I just want that to be the standard. And I go back and I looked at, I get a weird memory. Sometimes I miss little things like that, and sometimes I can remember like the day that something was done, because I'm nerdy and I watch this all the time on cable access. But I remember when, and again, I think it's funny that you're here, Mr. Young, because I'm almost positive you were there at the time when I'm almost positive you read this actually out loud. And then I think Bill Scott was on it, Jim McGann was on the board, all that.
It would be
It's somewhere
November
there.
15th, 2016. It's right on the bottom of the thing, yeah.
No, but I don't even think they actually, I think they voted to not even, did you even vote to revise it at that meeting?
One slight revision.
Well, okay, so that's when it was. So even then, it was a matter of just making sure that the policies are in place, that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. I just don't want to veer from the open meeting part of open meeting law. I want to be included in those things.
So
that's-
can I?
So, I was
That's
gonna-
my soapbox, that's all it is.
So, Joe, are you not getting emails? Because whenever I send out information or an FYI, you're always included in every email. So if you're not getting them, I want to have Stephen look in to see if your email is not receiving the emails that I'm sending. I always send out FYIs to the board just to update you with news. I did include you with all of the responses. I've included you with everything, and I haven't heard that you haven't gotten this or you have any questions. So if you're not getting my emails, please let me know, and we'll get your email address looked at and updated so that you are getting these emails.
How would he know that he
Yeah.
didn't get it?
Well,
The grand thing is I wouldn't know, but
yeah, because
the
whenever
only
I
thing
send
that I've
anything out
received-
in FYI.
the only thing that I've received is a response saying we can't talk about it, to which my response was, but I want to.
Okay, so then.
That's what it is.
Then you're not getting emails that I'm sending out.
Okay, and that's
so
fair.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
and that I didn't know about. And we'll have Stephen, our new IT director, look into it, that you're not getting the emails that
So-
I'm sending out. Because Jim, are you receiving my emails?
Oh.
Okay, and Laura, you're getting my emails.
I mean, it's hard to say because I don't know all of the complaints, and I have had issues. I've got issues getting into Dropbox. I don't always get consistent emails, but Gray's been good about double, sending me both my personal email address and my Hanson email address, which I feel super conflicted about, but it does mean that I get them at least. But without knowing all of the complaints you've got, it's hard for me to say that I've actually gotten all the responses. But can I drill down a little bit on something I thought you were saying, but correct me if I'm wrong? Were you saying you also would like to be more a part of the conversation about the resolution of those complaints?
Me, no,
versus
the board, yes.
Okay, that's what I meant,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
So, and just one clarifier on the open meeting law, because I know everyone always gets anxious about the open meeting law, and you should feel anxious about it. But when Lisa sends you all something, it's not an open meeting law violation. Even though I'm sending it to a quorum, I'm not a member of the board. She can do it, I can do it. Where it becomes complicated and not allowed is when you reply. So it's that dialogue, even if unbeknownst to the board members. So one of the things I do when I'm writing to my boards is I blind copy them all and
Yes,
put the
yes.
2 to the town administrator, so then no one can reply all, right?
Right.
So that's one way to avoid the dialogue. The other thing that we cannot do is Laura can't call me up and say, Kate, there's a problem, and then I write to everyone and I say, Laura told me that X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Because that would obviously disclose what Laura's opinion is to the entire body, right? So that's where it becomes complicated, but certainly if Bruce Young wrote a complaint to Lisa, Lisa could forward that complaint off to the board, and she could forward her response off to the board. So that was my only clarifier. This is up to you.
Okay, but to your point of the board looking at complaints, I mean, do we want to look at every complaint?
Yes.
We do want to look at
Oh,
every
I want to,
complaint.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll be in executive session every week.
You're not, they're not always falling under the reason to meet an
But you
executive
have to
session.
respond within 14 days.
Yep.
So we'll be, every meeting, we'll
I
be in
hope we don't get
executive
that many
session.
complaints.
So,
Ms. Green.
just so that I get my direction, so when we get complaints, I will forward them to the board. And how, do you want me to wait for you to give me your responses? I mean, I have a number of complaints that I have received in the last few days from an individual that I'd be happy to send to the board for your direction, believe me. I just want to make sure I'm following the process you want me to follow. If you want to see every complaint right when it comes in, or I will follow the direction that you give me. Because it troubles me that you're not getting my emails, and I don't know how to not, I mean, I guess we'll just have our new IT director look at all the emails I've sent out to make sure there wasn't a block or something, to make sure you're getting them all.
Ms. Cohen, I'll be with you in a second. Exactly what Lisa just said, is she wants to know, are we, the board, going to make the correspondence back of what the complaint is? Do you guys want to be involved in that? Because I'm hesitant of that, because we only meet every 2 weeks. This policy says we're going to be in touch with you in 2 weeks.
Does it say resolved or in touch?
So answer the inquiries or complaints in writing within 2 weeks.
So-
So, answer can be either way. Answer meaning responding that we are receiving your complaint, or answer meaning we're answering the complaint with an answer. So that can be looked at either way. Am I correct with that?
Yes, I would say answer is a substantive answer, to be honest. That would be my.
Are you saying it, I'm sorry, you're saying it is a substantive
I
answer?
would say it would be a substantive answer. I mean, based on the language of the policy, they're looking for some closure within 2 weeks. Now, there may be follow-up after that, and then you have to respond again, but, I think a response of, we'll get back to you in 6 months is probably not what was intended by this policy.
Are there categories we could come up with that we would say, and I know this is like bigger than a bread box, but for instance, could we say something like, if there's an allegation of a conflict of interest, that we all want to know about? If there's, I don't know, some like but I guess you'd handle sexual harassment like in a different way or something, like, I'm just making.
If someone interrupts someone while they're speaking, I don't want to know about it.
No,
And I
okay.
didn't really mean to interrupt you, Laura, but
Yeah,
is that, so we're going to go from one extreme to another?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. We
Pick
might-
2 or 3
yeah.
things that we need to know about, and let's just move on.
How about if everyone emails me your thoughts about the categories that would qualify for the whole board becoming aware and responding, and then I'll put them on the next agenda.
I think part of it too is we don't know the whole scope of complaints, right? It could be from someone being interrupting to someone doing, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that we as the board just can't make an opinion on, like ethics. I don't think we're qualified to
But that
determine.
doesn't mean that
But
we shouldn't know
we should
about
know,
it.
we should know about
Yeah.
it. But I don't think but that's a correspondence right off the bat that Lisa could say, you guys, unfortunately, we can't give an opinion, there's an independent agency that can make an opinion. But I think maybe, is there a way, Greer, that you could just send out a couple categories that you have received in the past? Like complaints are just rude to the extreme, and then maybe we can follow up on this.
Yes, I mean, we've got a big complaints section in the Selectmen's electronic folder.
Well, that's
And all
unfortunate.
of that, has been recorded over time. Yeah.
All right, and I want to close this up. So Ms. Cohen, you had,
I just wanted to touch base about some of the complaints I actually issued. My name's Christine Cohen, I live at 493 Spring Street, and I think I'm actually referred to in some of your meetings as keyboard warrior, and a couple of other people have been as well. I have issued a couple of complaints. First, I brought in paperwork to Greer, and then she gave me the complaint forms. I filled out the proper forms, and I didn't hear anything back. I have filed open meeting law complaints with Lisa and with Greer, and I believe with you. No, I'm sorry, the ZBA board. I haven't heard back yet. I still have a little time for that. But the 14 days hasn't applied to any of my complaints. And I just wanted to figure out.
I
So-
can speak to
I
the
did
open
send
meeting
a
law
letter.
complaint. The open meeting law complaint was referred to me. I prepare a draft response for the board. The board has to take it up at a publicly posted meeting. They can do it in an executive
And my
session,
other
and they can
complaints
do it
were?
in.
so hold
I don't know
on.
about those, but I'm just saying, the open meeting law complaint is being handled.
Okay,
I just haven't had time. I'm giving a draft. I'm still within my window, but I'm giving a draft to the board at the end of the week, and they're gonna post for next week.
okay. And the
And
other
and
ones?
I did mail out to you a response to your complaint. I
On
mailed it in a
July
letter.
8th, I didn't get it
Oh,
within 14 days.
that's the records request.
Nope, I submitted complaint forms as well,
Okay.
on the complaint form that I got from Greer, and I made
I
hundreds of
did
copies.
respond, if you've submitted a number of them, I did respond to, I think there were 3 of them that I took the information with and.
And did you mail that? Because I never received it.
I mailed it, yes. I have
received something from
copies.
you the other day, and it was saying that you received my public records request, and you were gonna charge me $25 an hour and 5 cents. But I'm asking, did you respond to my complaint that I made on July 8th?
Yes, I
I never
did.
received
I-
any
I
information.
put letters
I
together.
actually received an
and-
email from Matt Dyer with misinformation.
I actually typed the envelopes.
Okay.
Lisa sent them out.
So, I do have copies,
I would love to
yes.
see a copy.
I do have copies.
Yep.
Okay.
I can go get it right now and
Okay.
No, not now.
Or you can just email it to me, whatever's easiest.
I will be
but
happy to, because I did
didn't
mail
I
it.
heard crickets.
Yeah, I did mail them
That's
out
my
too,
request.
yes.
Okay.
So I will absolutely provide, I can email it to you, as a
Okay.
matter of fact, when we finish here tonight.
All right, so with that being said, I'm moving on to, so
Greer's gonna
Greer's
get us a
gonna,
list.
Greer's
We'll
gonna
talk
get us a
about it.
list of things that, what does the board want to be notified on, and where do we want to be involved, and we
Great.
can follow up on this sometime in the future, and go from there.
Thank you for putting that on the agenda, I appreciate it.
Yep. So we are now to, September is National Suicide Awareness Prevention, and there's a proclamation that was in our packets, if I can, do you happen?
Yeah, I do. My name is Jenny are we reading this, or is there an actual proclamation? Oh, all right, I don't have that then, I'm sorry. Do you have it? Oh, our clerk has
Oh,
it.
Mr. Clerk, would you mind just reading that off real quick?
All right, National
you.
Suicide Prevention Month, September 2021 proclamation for the town of Hanson. Whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of all deaths in the United States and the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 15 and 24. Whereas in the US, one person completes suicide every 14 minutes. Whereas it is estimated that 5 million people in the US are survivors of suicide loss. Whereas an increase in the overall suicide rate in our country was seen in 2019, representing a change in the recent pattern of stability or slight declines. Whereas suicide is a community problem and thus there must be a community response through various initiatives to reduce suicidal behaviors. Whereas the Plymouth Suicide Prevention Coalition, which is dedicated to reducing the frequency of suicide attempts and deaths through education, awareness, and action, urge that we as a community, one, recognize suicide as a national, state, and whole public health problem, and declare suicide prevention to be a Plymouth County priority. Two, acknowledge that no single suicide prevention program or effort will be appropriate for all populations or communities. Three, encourage local initiatives based on the goals contained in the National Strategy for Suicide Prevention that will, A, develop and implement strategies to reduce the stigma associated with being a consumer of mental health, substance abuse, and suicide prevention services. B, develop and implement community-based suicide prevention programs and suicide bereavement support services. C, implement training for the recognition of at-risk behavior and for the delivery of the effective treatment. D, increase access to and community linkages with mental health and substance abuse in the entertainment and news media. Whereas a great many suicides are preventable, therefore it be resolved that we, the Hanson Board of Selectmen, do hereby designate September 10th, 2021, which overlaps World Suicide Prevention Day on September 10th, as National Suicide Prevention Month in the town of Hanson, Massachusetts.
Great. And I think in this proclamation that they had sent over, that they just didn't update their town, so instead of Hull, it should be Hanson. So with that being said, do I have a motion to proclaim September 2021 Suicide Prevention Month?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? All right, 4-0. All right, so appointments for tonight. First up, TJ Ruffy for the Bylaw Review Committee, citizen at large. All right, so he's not here tonight, so what we'll do is we'll hold off until maybe next meeting if that he can attend. Item 8, Kurt Tarvis for Historical Commission. Do you mind just coming to the podium real quick? So, Mr. Tarvis, do you mind just kind of saying why you would want to serve on the committee?
Sure. I've been a resident of Hanson for the vast majority of my life. I was born and raised here, minus about 3 years living elsewhere. I've come back to our wonderful town. Always enjoy serving the town however I can. Currently, I'm elected as a cemetery commissioner. How fun. But I do enjoy the preservation of Hanson's historic cemeteries that are long forgotten. I have done clean-outs 2 different times at Hobart Cemetery on Route 27. I just want to really take another step, and Historical Commission has been needing somebody for a very long time. And I've been in contact with Teresa, the chair, and let her know my intentions and what I can provide to the commission. And I have her full support as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, any questions from the board?
No, we're thrilled to have you step up. I will entertain a motion. I mean, you'll entertain the motion, but I'll make it.
And then, Mr. Weeks, you have your question.
I always have my question. Any conflicts or anything that we need to be
Yes.
aware of?
The only thing that I have at all is, again, I serve on the cemetery commission, and that's it.
I don't think that's a conflict, but actually, just a fun fact, Pembroke has CPC, which Hanson does also. And one of the things that they did for a project was to restore some of the old cemetery headstones and things like that. So just think about that for a
Okay,
project.
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great idea.
So, there's been a motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? 4-0. Thank you very much for stepping up. For McQuon Reuse Committee, Ms. Cafato. Do you mind just sharing with us why you want to serve on the committee?
Well, I've been a resident of Hanson since I was married 34 years ago, and I have vested interest in the community. I attend a lot of different meetings to see how everything works in the town. I am trustee chair for the library, Board of Trustees, and vice president of the Public Library Foundation. And I think my background, I have good knowledge of business, very professional. I have excellent leadership qualities, and I think I'd be an asset to the group.
Great.
And, Mr. Chair, may I just mention, we very much would welcome Ms. Cafardo's involvement in the McQuon reuse, because we really could benefit from her perspective on the library and what their needs are, and just making sure we're factoring that in.
Absolutely. Great. Mr. Weeks?
You know the routine. Anything?
Well, I serve 2 positions at the library.
Yeah, that's, thank you.
All right.
And also when that, the library is on a mission to have a new library. It also, want our seniors taking care of the senior center at the library.
Excellent. So with that being said, any more questions? With that being said, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 4-0. Thank you very much for stepping up. All right, with that being said, one-day liquor license as printed on the agenda, and there is no retroactive stuff, so that's good.
Business is booming, so moved.
Moved,
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. So for old business, review town administrator performance appraisal. I talked to Ms. Green today, and I talked with Ms. Getson as well. The whole board hasn't been able to respond, including myself. I was off on vacation last week. So Ms. Green has said it's okay to kick it out to the next meeting, and we'll revisit it then. So if you haven't gotten your appraisals in, please do so at your earliest convenience.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, can we mention the selectmen that did get it in on time?
Oh, would that happen to be you? All right, gold stars.
Just
Gold-
checking.
Gold stars all around.
But, and I'm sorry to ask this, but I feel a little bit compelled to. So Jim and I submitted ours, and now everybody here has got in their packet a copy of what we submitted for our reviews.
Give them back to me, I'll tear them.
Okay, all right. Because I just want to make sure we're not doing something weird about
Right,
it.
Yeah, I don't want anybody looking at mine.
No bias.
I'll recognize the handwriting anyways, that's fine.
Ba-dum.
I put some really cool stuff in there. That no one else is gonna say.
So, all right, so with that being said, approve open session meeting minutes. So we have April 20th, April 20th, 2021, April 27th, 2021, July 20th, 2021, and July 27th, 2021.
Excuse me.
Yep.
We only put 2 in tonight.
Okay, which,
At the next meeting.
The 2 April ones?
April and July 27th.
There's one for July 27th.
Oh, yeah, here they
I
are.
believe,
Okay.
and there's one for October 20th. No, April 20th.
April 20th, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve, I'll break these out to 2, because Joe, I don't think you were with us in April just yet. Do I have a motion to approve April 20th, 2021 open session meeting?
So
Meeting minutes,
moved.
yeah.
Second.
Moved, seconded, all in favor? 3, and abstentions? 1. 3-0-1. And then, do I have a motion to approve July 27th, 2021?
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
second. All in favor? 4-0. All right, town administrators report?
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So I'm happy to report that yesterday we did receive 2 checks from the Plymouth County Commissioner's Office under the CARES Act. The first check was for $58,542. Second check was for $24,929. And that represents submissions number 7 and 11 which mainly were for air purifiers, sanitizers, school software for distance learning, vaccination clinic, contact tracing, cleaning services for town buildings, and additional PPE for all of town facilities and schools. An update on Cranberry Cove. I'm happy to report that I was out at the beach this morning with the administrative assistant, Dory Jameson. And based on, compared to what we witnessed a few weeks back, the sand wasps are mainly gone. There was only a small portion that did have some flying around, but for the most part, the rest of the beach was clear. So very happy, it looks like the tarps worked. With that said, the next couple of days, which are gonna be 90 degrees, the beach is gonna open. And what they're going to do is they're going to block off that one area that we saw some activity. They're gonna replace the tarps and block it off with the barrels so that people will know to go to the other side of the beach, which is safe. So I think that's a very good thing. Saved the town thousands of dollars. Did not put any chemicals in the beach to get into the water. And when these critters come back next year, we will have those tarps to put down again because it looks like it worked. So very happy to report that. On Ray, I just would like to give a heads up to our police and fire chiefs. They had all preparations in order. Our highway department, water department, everybody was prepared and ready to respond. Had we gotten to the storm to the intensity that they said we're going to. Fortunately, we got away with some rain and wind, but kudos to all of the department heads. Everybody worked hard to be ready and prepare. Also to COVID, just want to report we've had 6 positive cases in the town. We're following all CDC recommendations and procedures. Board of Health is right on top of that. And just want to reiterate, special town meeting, October 4th. Right now, we have that scheduled for the high school gymnasium. And that's all I have to report for this week.
Great, thank you very much. So with that being said, committee reports, I'm seeing how it's just getting too late in the evening. Is there any highlights that we have to report out on from our committees?
I really do, at the risk of you guys giving me the hairy eyeball, but I do.
2 minutes.
Okay, yeah. Economic Development Committee, things are really cranking on that. As you guys know, we got that grant from the state to work with Phil Schaffing from Stantec. And we are meeting with subject matter experts on 3 areas. One is to try to help small businesses by improving their online presence and/or advertisements and engagement with other business, so business-to-business transaction. The other is zoning assessment. We've got an expert who's going to help us take a look at that area down on Main Street and tell us what type of zoning might be helpful to make it more appealing to pedestrians, shoppers, and basically anybody. And then the third is, and my favorite, is the Facade Grant Program, which is a program where we are going to look to the state for some funds to help people shape up the outside of their buildings. And we've talked as a committee on how we're going to incentivize people. We're going to have our town assessor come and talk to us about some tax incentive programs that we might be able to offer as if you fix your building up, we might be willing to talk to you about decreased taxes. So we'll present all of that more to the broader Board of Selectmen. But I did want to remind you, Mr. Chair, that I had asked to have our meeting on September 14th, the Economic Development Committee would very much like to have that as the second and final public hearing for the plan that Stantec, aka Phil Schaffing, has developed for us. I thought it would be a good way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, present it to you guys, get a little feedback, and put a bow on it.
Okay. Is that time sensitive? Because I think on the 14th, we can talk offline.
Yes, but
about
it
this.
is time sensitive, but we
Okay.
might have some wiggle room.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent, thank
All
you. So with that being said, do I hear a motion to enter into executive session and not to return to public session upon completion to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body. The chair so declares, to wit, highway, clerical, police, and fire unions.
So moved.
Moved,
Second.
second, and it's going to be a roll call vote. Mr. Weeks?
Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Matt Dyer, aye. Ms. Davy? Aye. We are now in executive session.